Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call tonight's meeting to order, December 4th. If you could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Councilmember Marks.
Salute the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you could remain standing, please. We have an invocation by Pastor Greg Quirk.
Thank you, Council, Mayor. It's good to see everybody here today. Hopefully this is the right mic I'm supposed to use. All right. Well, let's pray before we begin. All right. We're good. All right. Thank you, Ty. Well, Father, as we live in this world that's filled with chaos, let us remind ourselves during this season that you were born amidst chaos. And you brought a message that was tremendous hope for all mankind. And so during this Christmas season, may we be reminded, as the angel's prayer was, that it would be our own for this world. They said, let there be peace on earth and goodwill towards men. And so, Lord, I also ask, as always, bless this council in all that they do and all the business that they have on the agenda tonight, that it would reflect the values and traditions of our city. And we give it to you in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, everyone, be seated. Item 1.4 and 1.5, City Clerk's report on posting the agenda and roll call.
Yes, Madam Mayor. The agenda was posted on November 30th at 4 p.m. Councilmember Medeiros?
Here.
Councilmember Rocco?
Here.
Councilmember Klein?
Here.
Councilmember Hilton is absent. Councilmember Marks?
Here.
Councilmember Tovar?
Here.
And Mayor Blankley.
Here. All right, under orders of the day, we have none. Item 1.7 is employee introductions. We have two, starting with community development. Sharon Goey.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and members of the community. I would like to welcome our newest member of Community Development Department, our Office Assistant, Mariah Maganda. She comes to us with a background in property management and research, helping to oversee 400 properties, and she was responsible for dealing with the code enforcement aspect of that, so that's perfect for us. She has experience working with local government to obtain permits and inspections, and she just got her degree in sociology from San Francisco State earlier this year. And while she was there, she worked as a research intern, collecting data, analyzing data for peer-to-peer mentorship program, and that has been really successful. It got implemented school-wide. So let's welcome Mariah.
Hi, council members. Thank you, Sharon, for the kind introduction. I'm super excited to be here at the City of Gilroy, and I look to make an impact and hopefully grow with the company as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Adam, yes. You've got the next one.
Good evening. Jessica Gaeta is the new office assistant for recreation. Jessica has been working part-time in the recreation division since 2018 when she was a senior at Christopher High School. She's attended Gavilan College and is in her final semester at San Jose State, where she's majoring in Spanish. Jessica knows recreation really well. She's been involved in almost all of our programs, seniors, adaptive, camps, after-school program, and more. Jessica, who is fluent in reading, writing, and speaking in Spanish, will be overseeing the day-to-day recreation office operations. Outside of work, you can find Jessica walking her dog, going to watch the San Jose Sharks win or lose, and hanging out in Santa Cruz. Please join me in welcoming Jessica.
Hello, Council. My name is Jessica, and I'm very excited to continue working with the Recreation Division. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I really appreciate the kind words that Adam himself also said about me. And I'm just really looking forward to continuing to grow and support the Recreation Division.
Thank you and welcome. Okay, that brings us to ceremonial items, 2.1, which is a proclamation for Arbor Day. So I'm going to meet Luis Ramirez at the podium, who is the chair of our Parks and Rec Commission.
All right.
too, but let me read it first.
Okay.
Okay. This goes back to 1872, when the Nebraska Board of Agriculture established a special day to be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can be a solution to combating climate change by reducing the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cutting heating and cooling costs, moderating the temperature, cleaning the air, producing life-giving oxygen, and providing habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, beautify our community, and whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, I, Marie Blankley, Mayor of the City of Gilroy, together with the Gilroy City Council on this 4th day of December 2023, do hereby proclaim December 6th, 2023 as Arbor Day. And I present this to our Parks and Rec Chair. Now from the water, and then he's going to speak. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Would
you.
you like-
Yeah,
it's up
I can
to you.
just
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about this Arbor Day. It's part of Tree City USA. We're a designated city. This particular, it's December 6th, so it's Wednesday at 2 p.m. We invite, of course, all the city staff and administration, city council members, the general public as well. We're planting trees, and some really nice trees. Thanks to Greg Bozo and that little small company called Google, we've got some really beautiful trees that are coming in at the Heartland Dog Park. Sorely needed. It's going to be really beautiful, so we invite the public and hope you can join us. Thank you.
Yay. Okay, and next is an annual presentation by the Personnel Commission that's going to be given by Vice Chair Marissa Haro, presenting.
Good evening, City Council members and Mayor. We're really excited to be here. My name is Marissa Haro, the Vice Chair for the Personnel Commission, and like the Mayor said, I'll be giving a presentation on the annual report for the Personnel Commission. The Commission is made up of 5 members, as you can see reflected on the screen. Nita Eddie Mitchell is our chairperson. I, Marissa Haro, am the Vice Chair. We also have Commissioner Catherine Cummins, Robin Bronze, and a vacancy. Please note that the term for Robin Bronze expired at the end of late 2022. However, due to a vacancy, she has willingly remained on to ensure that the Commission has a quorum. The role of the Personnel Commission is governed by Section 907 of the City Charter. We act in an advisory capacity in preparing, revising, and maintaining the classification plan and the human resources rules and regulations. We also hear disciplinary appeal hearings and grievance hearings. We meet monthly on the 4th Monday at 5:30, and we only meet when there are items for review. In 2023, we have met a total of 6 times. So some of our accomplishments for 2023 include we have reviewed, provided input, and approved 5 existing job descriptions, 7 new job descriptions, 1 employee reclassification, 8 salary range placements, and prior to the Commission reviewing these items, the union completes their own review and provides feedback. In 2023, there have been 65 recruitment processes, 899 employment applications, 66 new hires, 47 full-time and 19 part-time, 14 promotions, and most, if not all, of the commissioners have assisted in the hiring process for some of these recruitments. We've also received various training in various areas thanks to the help and coordination of Leanne McPhillips, the HR Director. Some of these include best practices for HR rules and regulations, best practices for classification and compensation, Gilroy Open Government Ordinance, Employee Law, Administrative Hearing Procedures, Harassment, Discrimination, and Retaliation Prevention, Board and Commission Handbook. We have not had any grievance or discipline appeal hearings conducted this year. And earlier this year, we updated the bylaws to adjust the meeting schedule from the second Monday to the fourth Monday of each month. And we are in the process of getting ready to update the Gilroy Human Resources rules and regulations, which is planned to take place in 2024. And that is our presentation. So at this time, if there are any questions, please let us know.
Thanks. You have been busy. Gosh. Any questions, Council? No. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Okay, moving on to item 3.2, which is the time on the agenda to speak on any item not on the agenda but within the jurisdiction of the City Council. I see 3 speakers on my board. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Okay, then Donald Perino, you'll be first, right up here. 3 minutes, followed by Ron Kirkish, followed by Stephanie Ellie.
Thank you, Mayor, Chief Pedro Espinosa, and all you City Council members. 2 weeks ago, Ben Papani's wife, Loretta Papani, died. He was a commissioner on the Gilroy handicap in the 80s and 90s. Never got what he wanted. He still has that boy, but his wife passed away 2 weeks ago, Loretta Papani. Going to what I was going to talk about. The water, well, the city charges in January when you have a credit card on file a fee, or if you take it out of your bank account, there's a fee. Now, I was informed that PG&E charges you to do this, but you don't see it. But the one mayor that I know somebody checks with did similar thing with our water, raise the water. I don't know if it's Valley Water raised it, but we had it raised in the water. Before you open your faucet, you have a higher rate. It's at a level, it was put on there. And I don't think the people that you have hired to do the credit card or the bank checking account is not good. I think you should do it yourself and don't charge the public. PG&E doesn't do it. Citibank doesn't do it. All our people do not charge. I'll use it there. The final thing. If I can think what it was, there's 2 things I was going to talk about. Oh, yes. I've been informed that EV vehicles, electric-driven vehicles, melt up at places like that pick up cars that have malfunctioned, and many of them are EVs. The people that pick them up, the car like Dion and Mark's, a majority of the vehicles are EVs. I suggest the city get hybrid. They go farther and don't break down like EVs, and EVs are no good. I told my wife when I kicked the bucket, get a hybrid but not an EV, because you will never be out without gasoline and power, because of gasoline be charging your battery. So you don't have to charge it with PG&E.
Thank you, Don. Thank you. All right, next speaker is Ron Kirkish.
I agree. I like hybrids too. Every year we have city council meetings twice a month. 12 months, that's 24 meetings typically, plus or minus sometimes. Tonight we see another empty seat on the days. This individual now has missed 19 meetings. Every year we have 24 meetings within the last 3 years, this individual has missed 19 meetings. Nearly a year's worth of meetings that have been missed. In actuality, when you pencil it out, that is over 1/4 or 25%. It's 26.5% of the meetings he has missed. More than one every 4 meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Stephanie Ellie.
Madam Mayor and City Council members, and my apologies to Director Goy for not letting her know I was coming up here to speak beforehand. I'm coming to you regarding an email I received from Zach Hilton, Councilmember Zach Hilton. I'm disappointed he's not here tonight. In this email, all recipients are blind CC'd. I don't know who received the email, but I know at least 2 other commissioners also received it. And Madam Mayor, I also received your email talking about the Planning Commission functions. I did supply you with a copy tonight for those who do not have it. I feel like this email lacks transparency and doesn't encourage collaboration. I've spoken to just about everybody on the council, aside from Councilmember Tom Klein in the past, as he's new and I haven't come before him with anything. I feel that everybody, including Zach, has been very helpful, but I've received several emails from Councilmember Zach Hilton where I'm PCC'd on, and that makes me feel very uncomfortable. This letter discusses our duty with regards to dissolved commissions that were rolled into the Planning Commission in 2022, and I wanted to remind him that there was supposed to be a handoff and transition plan for our responsibilities and duties. The Planning Commission has asked several times for that handoff to take place. And this is my apologies to Director Goy because this was before her time. Most recently, when I asked, I was told by legal counsel that they were unaware of any transfer of duties in session. So at the end, there were 3 questions posed. And just for transparency, I'm answering them, replying here. Over the past year, how have you incorporated the Complete Streets policy requirements into your project reviews? We have incorporated them. I'm not, going to sit down and identify every single thing that we've done, but we've incorporated those policies, and those recommendations have been discussed and added to items brought before the City Council. The question is, do you think that Planning Commission is composed of bicyclists and pedestrians in order to provide comprehensive recommendations to staff and City Council? I'm not really sure what's being asked here, but I am a bicyclist and I am a pedestrian. I also drive a vehicle. And then, are you receiving enough professional development and training opportunities to fulfill all your duties? And we have had many opportunities for training. They're very good. The planning team and staff are very good at letting us know that those are available. But I also want to remind him that the budget request was cut by council. Finally, I think there's a better solution for transparent communication rather than sending a BCC email, and I would like to see that we meet annually with City Council, and I look forward to interviewing with you for next week for my position. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the record, the letter I sent to the Planning Commission was to tell them that our council norms denounce that behavior. Nobody is supposed to be emailing all of our commissioners with their singular interpretation of what their duties are and what they should be doing. And it's happened before, and it's not something we can seem to stop except to keep calling it out. And so I wanted the commissioners to know that that was not supported by the City Council. They did not need to respond to it at all if they chose not to. Okay? All right. Does that conclude public comment?
I have no other speaker cards for this item, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And that brings us to council member reports. Council member Bracco. Nothing to report. Council member Armendariz.
Thank you, Mayor. So we had no meetings, but I did want to take the opportunity to thank the Gilroy Downtown Business Association. This weekend was the holiday parade, and I know many of us participated in. It was very fun, lively, and it was the most well-attended parade I've seen in downtown since I was a kid. And so it was. I just want to give hats off to all the volunteers and staff of Downtown Business Association for a great job.
That's all. Okay. Councilmember Marks?
Yes, Gilroy Gardens had their annual retreat a week ago, and where we planned what projects would be worked on over the next upcoming years. And I have to echo Councilmember Armendariz' comments. That was a terrific parade. It took a lot of planning, but we really had a lot of people present, and it was very worthwhile. Thank you.
Do you want to share the upcoming projects from Gilroy Gardens?
We're talking about, because they're starting a foundation, and with money that's coming in from the foundation, we look forward to putting in, some water rides, some new rides over the next few years, or many years, because they're very, very expensive. This next year, Lakeside will be up and running. Uncle John's Restaurant will be up and running. We voted to complete those two projects for this upcoming year. And that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Hilton is absent, so Councilmember Klein.
Yeah, I wanted to give an update on one of the boards I serve on. I'm going to read from this, so I might not make eye contact out there, but it is the Silicon Valley Regional Interoperative Authority. Chief Espinosa represents the Santa Clara County Police Chiefs Association on the working committee. Chief Espinosa has been an excellent contributor and can speak to the great work of SBRIA. That's short. So SBRIA represents the radio communications interest of public agencies in Santa Clara County. SBRIA facilitates daily, local, and regional interoperable communications for our JPA members and participants. SBRIA is made up of every city in the county except Los Altos Hills, the county of Santa Clara, and most special districts including BTA, Water District, and South County Fire. The radio system handles nearly 65,000 radio transmissions each day, or about 23.5 million per year. There was not a single instance in the last year where the radio system was busy and users could not access radio communications. Both Gilroy Fire and Police Departments use the system on a daily basis. Nearly 12,000 radios operate on the system, and another 8,000 mutual aid radios are authorized to use the system. Mutual aid partners include CHP, CAL FIRE, and federal law enforcement agencies like the FBI, U.S. Marshals, and the ATF. Inoperable talk groups allow agencies outside of Santa Clara County or agencies in other areas of the county to communicate with one another on large incidents. SBRIA's annual budget is approximately $5 million. In 2011, a competitively bid contract was awarded to Motorola. The system cost nearly $90 million, and it was paid for by grant funds and general fund contributions from SBRIA members. An 11-member board is the Legislative Oversight Committee. Gilroy shares a rotating board seat with Morgan Hill. Accomplishments over the last year include the implementation of a radio system performance management program, completed a physical and cybersecurity assessment of the system designed to improve protection and resiliency, added mutual aid cooperators, added San Jose International Airport operations to the radio system, and completed the first ever strategic planning session to support the long-term capital infrastructure funding and life cycle replacement of the current system in approximately 10 years. Again, if you have any questions, Chief Espinosa would be the one you want to ask about, so thanks.
All right, Councilmember Tovar.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll try not to repeat anything that my fellow council members said, but I want to thank the GDBA for the work that they did on the holiday parade. Not only the feedback I got was that the city was very supportive, so I appreciate the city's work on that. It was great to see our fire department out there leading the parade, and it was great to see so many people out at the local restaurants, businesses. So again, for the GBA, thank you for your work. December 9th from 2 to 4 at the downtown pop-up park, we're doing a Christmas giveaway for families in need. If you want to come by, invite folks. We're giving away tickets, toys, gift cards, and food. So that'll be December 9th from 2 to 4 for families in need. Santa Claus will be out there and try to make some joy for some folks. That's it.
Okay. Last Monday was the grand opening of South Valley Middle School, the rebuild. Wow. Then Saturday was the holiday parade. Double wow. And really, the magnificence of that parade was the people who came. It was just all of you, people who came. That's really what it was. And then I attended a Caltrain policy group meeting. Not as well as the other two things. But it was a good effort by Caltrain. What I do want to share is they're trying to get representatives from all the cities on the corridor from San Francisco to Gilroy. And they did that. And we had a 2-hour powwow meeting, breaking out in small groups, trying to assess each city representative's ability to contribute or perceptions or contributions, I guess I should say, on all of the grade crossings. Some have things that go over and that they don't want them there, and others want at-grade crossings to be separated. But no matter how you look at it, it's going to be a difficult task because it's San Francisco to Gilroy, and Gilroy and Morgan Hill are the only ones along portions of the track that are not owned by Caltrain. Union Pacific owns the tracks south of Tanian. That is just a fact as it is today. So that is my report, and we'll move on to council correspondence. We have a letter in our packets. As we all know, we're trying to get county ambulance response to improve its time. That's in the packet. Also in the packet is council member meeting attendance, so that everybody can see exactly by meeting what council member attendance is. All right, consent calendar. Is there anyone wishing to remove anything from consent? Oh, did I skip 6? Oh, future council initiated items. Sorry. Anything there? No. Okay. Anybody want to remove anything from consent? If not, then I'll go to public comment. Do we have any members of the public?
No public comment, Madam Mayor.
Okay, closing public comment. And
Move for
then
approval.
Councilmember Tovar has moved approval.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Bracco. And we can vote.
Councilmember Daris?
Yes.
Councilmember Bracco? Yes. Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar?
Yes.
And Mayor Blankley.
Yes, all right, that's unanimous with one absent. Okay, 8.1, bids and proposals. Approve the purchase of a modular replacement restroom for Christmas Hill Park and authorize the city administrator to execute related purchase documents. And this will be Carl Biarchi giving us this report.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Carl Biarchi, our interim public works director. I've got 3 items in a row for you. 2 of them are construction related, and the third one is consultant. So the first one up is we're replacing a bathroom at Christmas Hill Park. Oops, that's right, got to get that. Thank you, Leanne. A little background, the city's goal has been to minimize maintenance in our city parks, and that means protecting against regular wear and tear and vandalism. In fact, we have a project in our approved capital improvement program. It's a 5-year funded $350,000 a year to replace bathrooms in our parks. Recently, actually earlier this year, the restroom at Christmas Hill Park burned severely and it essentially totaled. And so we're proposing to replace that with a modular restroom. And we find that the modular restrooms are the most economical way to replace these restrooms. You can get them done quicker. They're made of very durable and fire-resistant materials, and we've gone to Sourcewell to provide a competitively bid purchase for that. This is a picture of the restroom soon after it burned, and this is how it looks today. We cleaned the pad, and we've got a fence around the site. And the new restroom is going to be similar to one that we have over at Miller Park. This one was installed in 2016. I should point out that these look perhaps like wooden buildings, but they're actually made of concrete. They're like 5-inch thick concrete, the roof and the walls. And so I'm closing with the recommendation to approve the purchase of a modular replacement restroom for Christmas Hill Park and authorize the city administrator to execute related purchase documents. And that's all I have. I'll take any questions.
All right, thank you. Unless someone has a burning question, I'd like to go to public comment first. Anybody from the public?
No speaker cards, Madam Mayor.
Okay, closing public comment. Councilmember Tovar.
Thank you for that. Going back, can you share with the public what happened to the actual restroom and why it has to be replaced?
The restroom burned.
No, I know it burned. I'm asking,
I'm sorry.
how did it happen?
Oh, I'm not sure. I assume it was at nighttime. I don't really know how it burned.
Okay. And then Sourcewell, is that a company throughout the U.S. and is it local or where are they?
Yeah, it's a Sourcewell. That's a good question. Sourcewell
Well,
is
it's a question I ask every time we do a contract. So
okay.
I'm asking if it's local or not.
They are not local.
All right, go ahead, finish up. So, are they the only company that we could have went with?
Sourcewell is a way to expeditiously get these contracts. They competitively bid. They've got a whole range of different types of. You can buy equipment, services, construction work, and they've got a big menu. So we went to them.
But they're not local.
They're not local.
Thank you.
Sourcewell is a procurement
Councilmember
service.
Armendariz, yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. They're a service. They're not the actual contractor that creates the restrooms, right? So we go to them to find ways to buy stuff.
Thank you.
So my question is about the actual restroom. Are there pictures or schematics of the inside? Like, do the restrooms have doors? Do they have mirrors and soap dispensers?
Yes, I don't have one for you tonight, but it's essentially this restroom will be. It comes in two. It's one modular has two parts to it, and two restrooms, and they're unisex restrooms. We package for this project two modulars back to back. One of them will have the two restrooms. The other one will have only one restroom and a storage area. So that's why we're calling it a three-stall or a three-stall restroom. So
there's a total of 3 stalls.
Total of 3, yes, and a little storage room to make up the 4 units.
Okay, and previously the number of restrooms there was greater. Now it was in that particular
one that burned.
had,
I don't have an answer for you on how
I
many.
think the women's had 3 or 4, 3 stalls, right, including a ADA one. And will they both have ADA stalls on both sides,
Yes.
or will there just be one?
Yes, but both sides.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Bracco?
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense to put a smaller restroom than we had there originally. I mean, we didn't have enough before. This is going to cause a huge problem, only having a 3-stall restroom out there.
The one thing that Mr. Bracco, we have to remember is that we're putting it in the same footprint, and the previous bathrooms were most likely not ADA compliant. So we take the same footprint, and we say, how many bathrooms can we get in this? And that's what we purchase.
But wouldn't now be the right time to put a bigger pad so you could put something that's going to last?
Well, we could put a bigger pad in. It would take away some park space and add to the cost. So we're trying to do this economically. I mean, this is also not the only bathroom in the park. So there are 3 other bathrooms as well, or 2 other bathrooms.
2 on that side and
2 on that
one
side.
on the red side.
One on the north side.
Okay. All 3 of these stalls are ADA? Okay.
Carl, I have a question.
Yes.
What date, in the staff report, it doesn't say what date the city contacted Sourcewell to seek a competitive bid. It was sometime after these bathrooms burned down, so sometime after February. But about
Yes.
when did we begin the process to replace the bathrooms?
I want to say we probably started in July or August.
Okay. And then here we are today. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Anything else on the timeline? Like how long, if we approve this?
We anticipate this to take about 3 months, 3 or 4 months to get installed. So it'll be next spring. Early summer, yeah.
Okay. Do we have the unit?
Pardon me?
Do we have the material? I mean, the
if
units?
If this is approved tonight, we'll place the order, and then they'll manufacture the units and deliver them.
Got it. Of course. Yeah.
The other thing is that I should remind everyone is that the bathroom burned down. Our insurance is covering the cost of that loss. So our insurance provided some funding for this as well.
Jimmy, sorry. So with your comments, going back to Councilmember Bracco's comments, you had mentioned if we go larger, it's going to cost more. But you just said that our insurance is covering it, so help me understand that piece.
Well, they're not going to, if we decide to make larger bathrooms, I don't think our insurance is going to cover that. They're going to cover the loss we had from
Yeah.
the wooden building being burnt down.
Yeah, they won't cover your ability to make something better than you had before. Yeah.
How long
Okay.
did it take?
Okay,
for the insurance-
council members, let's,
okay.
okay, Councilmember Marks, go ahead.
How long did it take for the insurance company to approve the cost and respond to the city?
I don't think I have an answer for that.
Let's ask our risk manager, Leanne McPhillips, who helped with the claim.
Yeah, it's been too long.
Councilmember Marks, we opened a claim right away when this incident occurred, and then we have an active open claim. They are aware of it. Until we get them our final cost numbers, they can't reimburse us. So as soon as we have our final numbers of what it's going to cost to replace the restroom with a like restroom, then we'll submit that cost paperwork to them, and then they will reimburse us. So we've had the claim open since the time that the incident occurred.
So what was taking so long to get the numbers to them?
Well, we were exploring a lot of options on this restroom. This wasn't the only choice that we were looking at. We were looking at different types of restrooms that we know have been successful. So there was a period of trying to explore and find the best options for the restroom.
Okay, I guess just from my own personal point of view, I would just like to see things happen a little bit sooner because the public was without a restroom all summer. And I know Los Animas was out of both restrooms a couple of years ago for 10 months. And they certainly did not get anything like this replaced. So I would just like to see everything more expediently done. So, and hopefully this new restroom will be up and running by March, by March or April, by the springtime, but it's not even ordered yet, so.
Because they can't order till we approve. So
Right.
if there's a motion on the floor, is there a motion?
A motion.
Okay, motion by
approval.
Councilmember Armendariz to approve.
And I'll second.
And seconded by Councilmember Marks. Okay, and this is a digital vote, Ty, yes?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Just
Okay.
give me 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
And the motion was made by Councilmember Armendariz?
Yes, and seconded by Councilmember Marks.
Thank you. I'm going to open the vote now.
Okay, and that is unanimous minus the one absent. Okay, great. 8.2, award a contract to Cal West Lighting and Signal Maintenance for the fiscal year 23 San Ysidro Lighting Picnic Area Improvements Project, number 23, PW 281, and approve a project expenditure of $178,200.
Thank
Please
you,
continue.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, Carl Biarchi, Interim Public Works Director. Oops, let's get out of that. A little background on this. The city has received grant funds from the state of California. This is the Prop 68 grant program, and we're putting that money towards two projects. The first one was the Gilroy Sports Park Playground surface repair. That was just completed this year. And the other one is the San Ysidro Park lighting improvements, which is the topic of tonight's item. The bidding process, we used our informal bidding process, as called out for in our purchasing policy. 3 contractors were invited to bid, and we received no bids. And when we receive no bids, then what we do is we can seek out a contractor to help us get this built. We reached out to our street light maintenance contractor, asked them for a bid. They gave us one, and it was less. It was $162,000 and below the engineer's estimate. The scope of the project is we're essentially replacing some old light fixtures with LED lights, and this improves. This is better light quality. It's a safety factor, and it reduces our long-term maintenance and energy costs. So we're replacing 16 street lights. Those are the ones from the pole. These are sort of near the perimeter, and I'll have a diagram of the park I can show you. But 16 street lights, and then we have some Cobra light fixtures out there. Cobras are the ones that extend out on 2 sides, and we're replacing those with LED. And we have to have this done by June 30th of next year to be in compliance with the grant program. This is San Ysidro Park. The north is off to the left. The east is up to the top. And if you can make out the red dots on the top of this particular diagram, those are the Cobra light heads that will be replaced with LED. And then down along the western side and the southern side, which would be the bottom and the right, those are the street lights that we're going to replace with LED. And then we're replacing the whole pole as well as the light fixture. So a little bit about the budget. The proposed contract is for $162,000. We're asking for a 10% contingency for a total authorization of $178,200. State of California Department of Parks and Recreation Office of Grants and Local Services will reimburse the city $133,000, $384, and we will match that. We have a match requirement of $44,816, and that's recommended to be funded by the general fund utilizing fiscal year 24 budgetary savings from the citywide park re-roofing rehabilitation capital project that we just talked about. So the recommendation is to award a contract to CalWest Lighting and Signal Maintenance, Inc., for the fiscal year 23 San Ysidro Lighting and Picnic Area Improvements Project and approve a project expenditure of $178,200. And that concludes that report.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any members of the public wishing to speak on this item?
No speaker cards, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Carl, you said match. We're not matching. You mean we supplement. The grant is 133 and we're kicking in the other 44.
That's correct.
That's what you mean.
Correct,
Yeah,
yes.
not matching. Okay. Any questions from council?
Move for approval.
Oh, I have a question first.
Okay. Councilmember Armendariz?
Thank you. Carl, you mentioned that 3 contractors were invited to bid. How were those contractors chosen, and why do you think nobody bid on it?
They are chosen from, when we do informal bids, we can reach out to contractors that we know do this kind of work. This is a specialty kind of work, so it wasn't real easy to find contractors to bid on this. And it's not clear why we don't get bids. It just wasn't, maybe the project wasn't large enough for them. It wasn't clear to us. So fortunately, we were able to find someone who we feel very comfortable with for this.
And to steal Councilmember Tovar's lightning, is it a local contractor?
Yes. CalWest is a local contractor, yes.
Okay, thank you.
That's why I'm...
Okay. If there are no other questions, looking for a second to Councilmember Tovar.
I'll second.
Okay. So motion made by Councilmember Tovar and seconded by Councilmember Armendariz to award the contract to CalWest Lighting. And that's a digital vote. All right, and that is unanimous again with one absent. Okay, 8.3, award of a contract to Ruggieri Jensen Azar and Associates for the preparation of design documents for the Gilroy Ice Center Street Improvements and Traffic Signal Project, 24-RFP-PW-492. Approve a contract expenditure of $316,000 and authorize the city administrator to execute the final agreement. Carl Biarchi will give this report as well.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Carl Biarchi, Interim Public Works Director. This is a consulting services contract that we're recommending. The street improvements and traffic signal out near the Outdoor Sports Center are included in the adopted fiscal year 24 capital improvement program. It's as a companion project to the Gilroy Ice Center. The improvements have been considered and reviewed in the environmental review for the Outdoor Sports Center, and in 2019 we did a supplemental EIR to accommodate the new ice center, and it did discuss these street and signal improvements there. And our goal is to improve vehicle, bicycle, and pedestrian access to the outdoor sports park. And we're scheduling this so that the improvements are ready when the ice center opens, the Gilroy Ice Center opens. This is an aerial view of the project. The signals identified up at the top there, that's the Monterey Road and the Monterey Frontage Road intersection. We'll put a new traffic signal there. And we're going to rebuild the entrance into our sports park, the frontage road there. And you can see the Gilroy Ice Center is located down to the left, the site of the new ice center. So the goals of the project, we want to improve Monterey Frontage Road. It's currently in disrepair. We're going to rebuild it, new sidewalks, new street lights, drainage improvements, striping, and bike lanes. And then we also want to install a new traffic signal at Monterey Frontage Road intersection. We'll do this by first evaluating the traffic patterns and designing the signal accordingly. And we're going to accommodate pedestrians and bicycles as well as vehicles with that design. So the consultant scope is to prepare bid-ready documents, and that means construction plans, specifications, and cost estimates. And the elements of their proposal include topographic survey, property line boundaries, geotechnical investigation, traffic signal study, drainage analysis, and then roadway design and traffic signal design. The process for this consultant, we have a list of consultants for different categories that we can draw from in engineering. In this case, this was a pretty broad category for just civil design, and we sought proposals from 4 or 5 of established firms on that list. We received 2, and those were evaluated by staff. And when we evaluated those, we determined that Ruggieri, Jensen, Azar to be the most qualified. And the schedule and fee, if this is approved, we'll begin the design immediately. Hope to hit 65% design in May and have bid-ready package in July of next year. And then soon after, we can work on putting the bid out and getting a construction contractor on board. RJA's fee proposal is $301,000. We're requesting a contingency of $15,000 for a total authorization of $316,000. So we're recommending award of contract to Ruggieri, Jensen, Azar for the preparation of design documents for the Gilroy Ice Center street improvements and traffic signal project, and approving a contract expenditure of $316,000 and authorizing the city administrator to execute the final agreement. And I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Carl. Yeah, this is not just the street that needs improvement there. This is, right now, you don't even know that the sports park is back there when you drive down Monterey. So this is going to not only improve that frontage road, but there'll be a stoplight there. And then, of course, we could do signage when the ice center's there. But
and we may introduce a entry element of some kind, saying that the sports park is here. So.
Yeah, no, that's great. And Ruggieri Jensen is a company I know that we've used since back when I was on the Planning Commission in the 90s, so they've been around. Okay, Councilmember Tovar, you have a question.
They're from Gilroy.
They're from Gilroy, yes. They're a local firm.
Yeah.
About time. Good.
Okay. Go to public comment when you are able to get back. Any other council members wanting to speak besides... one who's okay. Okay, do we have anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item?
No speaker cards, Madam Mayor.
All right, then this is coming back to council if no one else. Okay.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councilmember Bracco and seconded by Councilmember Tovar to award this contract to Ruggieri Jensen Azar.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you, yes. And that's also unanimous, minus with one absent. All right, 8.4, award a contract to Youth Alliance for the South County Restorative Justice Youth Diversion Program Coordinator position and approve a contract expenditure of $300,744. Oh, it's not Luke, it's Sandra. Sandra, you're giving this report?
Yes.
Okay, Sandra's giving this report, and hopefully she'll start off by telling us the money is not coming from us. Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
Was it in the council presentations? It's not in here.
President, you want to say anything about this before she? Oh. Please. I can just put in my phone's right now. Do you know what you said? So, what folder? That sheet saved it. There it is. Thank you. We'll never figure that out. Thank you. Thank you. All right.
Okay, good evening, Mayor Blankley and members of the Gilroy City Council. My name is Sandra Cruz, and I currently serve as the South County Task Force Coordinator with the City of Gilroy, and I'm here tonight to present on agenda item number 8.4 as it relates to the South County Restorative Justice Youth Diversion Program. Before I dive into the presentation, I would like to briefly share an overview of the South County Youth Task Force. The South County Youth Task Force is a regional collaboration with a wide spectrum of partners to include various community-based agencies, governmental agencies, and also law enforcement agencies. And our work serves the communities of Morgan Hill, Gilroy, and San Martin, is funded through local, county, and state partners, is organized into 3 different groups: the policy, the technical team, and also working committees. Since 2013, we've been able to serve an unduplicated number of 15,000 youth and families in South County. And our work is guided through our strategic plans that has outlined goals and objectives for our work. Our current strategic plan is titled Project to Thrive, which builds on our previous 2017-2021 strategic plan, which was titled Project Thrive. This was developed from 2021 to 2022 through our strategic plan committee, which is composed of over 13 community-based agencies, government partners, and other partners. This strategic plan engaged the community and stakeholders in over 30 sessions. We were able to connect with 367 community members and stakeholders in this process. We used restorative listening circles to uplift the community members and the stakeholders' needs, their concerns, hopes, and also the goals that they had. These 5 topics that you see listed here are consistent with the emerging listening circles from the South County and the youth diversion program that I'm going to be talking about tonight is a direct result of the strategic plan that we currently have. About a year ago, the council accepted the grant funds from BSCC, the Board of State and Community Corrections, for $1 million for 3 calendar years, 2023 to 2025, and these funds directly fund the South County Restorative Justice Youth Diversion Program. The state funds directly expand this diversion program. It serves more youth, and it allows us to also contract a full-time coordinator for these services. These are a list of the current diversion partners. We have both school districts, we have both local law enforcement agencies, we have local community-based agencies, we have the district attorney's office, the sheriff's department, and the state of California as a partner in this diversion work. The diversion goals are the first one, to provide youth and their families with the support and services that they need in order to succeed in South County. This program also helps youth to be accountable for the actions in a restorative manner. It uses language that youth and families understand. It brings in and uplifts the voice of the victims and the community. It holds the family structure and also the community accountable for our support in the youth, and importantly, it promotes public safety. This program uses prevention and intervention models. It allows youth who engage in this harmful conduct to come together with those that have been impacted by that harm to address the harm that occurred in the community. It is an alternative to the traditional path that youth usually have to go through after they receive a citation. And the successful completion of this program allows youth's case to be sealed under Welfare and Institution Code 827.95. And this program is grounded in restorative justice and trauma-informed principles. Very high overview of the process, of the framework of this program from start to end. First, there is a 911 call made, and there's police contact. The second step is to check the youth's eligibility, and if the youth qualifies for this program, they're referred to the program. Step 3 is an engagement call and an intake interview by our community-based agency partners through the youth support specialist. And step 4 is the restorative justice circle, where youth and those impacted by the harm are able to sit down together and really address what occurred. And then there's a community building phase from 3 to 6 months. It's really based on the case and what the youth might need. There might be restitution involved. There might be different services that the youth may need to complete, all based from the restorative justice circle. And then there is a program completion if the youth is able to successfully complete the program. In order for this work to be expanded through this grant, the city is required to contract with the local nonprofit to fulfill the full-time coordinator role and responsibilities of the coordinator. So on September 11, the city published the 24 RFP PD 490 on the city's website. It was also published on the local newspaper. It was sent through email with local community-based agencies and county partners, and it was also advertised on our social media. On October 6th, this RFP received a total of 4 proposals, and there was an evaluation phase of the proposals from October 9th through the 26th. This evaluation panel consisted of a diverse group of in-house and outside key partner agencies that graded the proposals and also hosted interviews. On November 6th, the notice of award was published, selecting Youth Alliance as the consultant to fulfill this role. November 4th, protests were received, allowing the city to be able to move on to the next step. And tonight, I am here to recommend that the council takes the next step in order to continue this work. So what would Youth Alliance be doing? Youth Alliance would be fulfilling this full-time coordinator responsibility from December 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2025. For $300,744. And this agency would oversee, coordinate, and support the referrals and the process of this diversion program, would facilitate the monthly meetings, the collaborative meetings, the meetings with the families, would oversee an approximately 50-plus youth, new referrals, along with maintaining and closing out the current youth on the diversion program, would conduct youth referral entrance and exit surveys, will coordinate the restorative justice circles that occur, would coordinate the trainings, would work with our program evaluators, and fulfill other programmatic and logistical responsibilities for this work. The recommendation is to award the contract to this community-based agency, Youth Alliance, for the amount of $300,744 for the South County Restorative Justice Youth Diversion Program Coordinator role, and authorize the city administrator to execute the contract and all associated documents for this work.
Thank you, Sandra. Excellent report. Those who I think know that I sit on that. Councilmember Tovar is also someone who sits on this entity. Can I just ask, who would be the oversight to the Youth Alliance? Is that something is that oversought by South County Youth Task Force?
It is.
Okay.
Yes, it's overseen by myself and then my supervisor.
Okay. And the whole $300,000 is part of the grant money. This is grant money. That's not.
Yes. It's all grant funds.
Right. Okay, I have Councilmember Marks on the board, and then I'll go to you, Councilmember Tovar, because I see you waving your hands. Okay, Councilmember Marks.
Okay, thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Sandra. That was very informative. I have a question, and I was wondering this when I read the staff report. The $300,000, is that for the program coordinator, one person?
That is to fund the coordinator, all the aspects of the program. It's for 2 years, and it is a fully burdened cost of the agency for the coordinator role. And then it also has funding for supplies and expenses that are associated with the work.
So then how much is the actual coordinator getting? What is that person's salary?
Well, the money is going to the Youth Alliance.
Right.
Not to a person.
Okay, well then,
That's
how
right.
am I reading this incorrectly then? It says this South County Restorative Justice Youth Diversion Program Coordinator position
Right, that's how I read
is funded. And the way it's written, it sounds like they're getting paid $300,000 a year.
No, through December of 2025.
For 2 years, 300.
For 2 years.
Yeah.
Well,
That's how I read it.
$150,000. Okay, you read it like that too. Okay. So that money then is over a 2-year period for this person. Okay. So that was in there.
Yes, and it
Okay.
goes to Youth Alliance for them to pay for the coordinator, for a full-time coordinator and everything associated with that coordinator. And then there's also budget for supplies and expenses
Okay.
for being able to, coordinate all the efforts
That
around
makes
this
more sense.
work.
That wasn't in the report. Now, will council ever hear back on the success of this program and get statistics on how families
Through
are doing?
those of us who are the reps.
Oh,
on
all
that.
right. You'll
Right,
do that.
that's
Okay,
right.
great.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And in addition, part of this state grant is for the city, for the South County Youth Task Force to report back to the state. So we do have a third-party evaluator evaluating all the work. And at the end of the grant, the city has to submit a report to the states that is going to be very detailed. How many youth did we serve? Did we meet our goals? And that will be made public.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Tovar, did you have?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Well, Carol asked one of the questions I had, but Sandra, if you can share with the public, in one of your slides you talked about there was 4 proposals. Can you talk about the differences in those proposals? And also you mentioned the stakeholders that were involved in making this decision. Who exactly were those individuals?
Yes, so the city received a total of 4 proposals, and they were all scored based on 6 key criteria. The first one was statement of qualifications. Out of 100 points, 20 of those points were for the statement of qualifications. The second criteria was the project understanding, also for 20 points. Criteria 3 was for the project schedule for 10 points. 4 was project budget. 5 was key staff, and then there was a section for references. So Youth Alliance scored 80.50 out of their average scored. The second agency scored 54.17. The third one scored 39.33, and the last one scored 16 points on an average score of 100 from the panel.
Second part of my question.
The folks that were on this panel were from key stakeholders and partners. They included members from the Gilroy Unified School District, one member from the Morgan Hill Unified School District, a member from the Gilroy PD, and that was our internal rep, a member from the Morgan Hill Police Department, a member from the county DFCS, and also a member from the District Attorney's Office.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Mayor, if there's no other questions, then I'll move for approval.
Okay. Did I ask for public comment?
Sorry, no.
Okay,
Again,
public
Madam
comment?
Mayor. One speaker card, Madam Mayor, and it's Ron Kirkish.
Okay. Is that, I don't know if that mic's on. Okay, now it is.
Okay, thank you. $374. That's a nice chunk of money, but it's not enough. We need more we have problems in our youth, and I'd like to see that bucket get filled a lot more. We need well over $1 million to help our kids. The reason I'm concerned when I came up here, was I didn't know too much about this issue. I was concerned that, and I saw your slide with the number of groups, community groups that I believe you will be dispersing funds to for this program. And I didn't see anybody up there that I was against. They all look like very fine community groups. But the reason I'm speaking is because I want to ensure that we use this money to help our kids. But I'm very concerned that this money not be used to give to groups that teach the kids to disrespect our police officers. So that's why I'm here. I don't think that's the case, but I just wanted to make that statement. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, seeing no other speakers, then we have a motion by Councilmember Tovar, seconded by Councilmember Klein. Digital vote. And this is a motion to approve the contract.
They're actually two separate items, and I think you can do them both at the same time.
Okay, to award the contract and authorize the city administrator to execute the contract. Yep.
Yes.
Okay. And that also passes unanimously with one absent. Okay, that brings us to item 9, public hearings. We have none. 10 is unfinished business. We have none. 11.1 is the introduction to the draft downtown parking management plan that our interim Public Works Director, Carl Biarchi, is going to give us. Quite thorough document in our packets.
Okay, good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Carl Biarchi, interim Public Works Director. I'm going to read you an introduction. In September of 2022, the city hired the firm W-Trans to prepare the downtown parking management plan, a comprehensive study for the city's downtown parking inventory and use. The goal of the plan is to quantify the existing parking conditions, evaluate demand versus supply now and into the future, and provide strategies the city might employ to improve parking availability. So the plan is essentially done. So we feel it's time now to share it with the city council. We're going to walk you through the plan as succinctly as possible. And what we're asking for tonight is just feedback from the council. We can incorporate that into the final version and bring this back later for final adoption. Tonight I have Brian Canepa. He's the principal and owner of W-Trans and the author of this study, so he's going to walk us through that. So without any further ado, I'll introduce Brian.
Excellent. Thank you, Carl, Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for seeing me this evening. Brian Cannon from W-Trans. And as you mentioned earlier, Mayor, yes, it is a robust report. So if you didn't read it all, I would completely understand. But what I'm going to try to do tonight is just walk through relatively briefly the process that we went through, the analysis findings, and the recommendations of the report. So just very briefly in terms of how this project progressed, we did kick this off over a year ago, last fall. We conducted parking data collection, which I'll discuss soon, just over a year ago. We had a really robust community engagement process in late winter that involved 3 workshops, 2 focus groups, an online survey, website, as well as a hotline and other pieces to get the public involved. And we developed the parking management plan in the summer, and we're here to present it to you for your feedback. So the parking analysis. So as I mentioned earlier, we kicked off this process a year ago, just over a year ago, as you can see from the dates here, and did a full parking inventory and occupancy survey to downtown from 1st Street to 10th Street, from Railroad to Eagleberry, including the Civic Center. And we surveyed all of the publicly accessible public and private spaces, both on-street and off-street, to get a really comprehensive look at parking demand. We did it from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. by hour each day. We also surveyed duration, how long vehicles were parked there on street, to try to determine, for example, if it was relatively high turnover patrons versus longer staying employees. I should also note, too, based on the dates of this was prior to the parking lot at 7th and Eagleberry opening. So just keep that in mind. We did break the area, because it's such a large area, into kind of these 4 zones for analysis: the upper downtown, the core downtown, lower downtown, and the civic center. This is essentially what it looks like at peak hour on the weekday. So peak demand, looking at by hour for all 3 days, occurred at between 10 to 11 a.m. on the weekday. The colors on this graph, this is just only for on-street parking: red indicating very full, green indicating very empty. But as you can see, of the roughly 3,200 spaces that were surveyed, the peak demand was about 1,400 spaces, or almost 44% of the supply overall for the entire study area. We found that there was generally higher demand on-street and in public off-street parking than private off-street parking, which is frankly very typical of most downtowns. The other days that we surveyed did have relatively similar patterns, slightly lower demand. I will note that the holiday parade, when we counted last year, if you all remember, it was a lot of rain. But we still have strategies in here to work with special event demand. In terms of where the demand is the highest, perhaps not surprisingly, is what we call the core downtown, which is essentially Monterey from 4th to 7th. At that point, you can kind of see from the off-street lots here on the map that the public off-street lots in particular are very well used, and with a peak demand of about 55% overall. The other lots on this map, for example, are primarily private off-street that are green. We did also really want to dig in and survey the transit center that serves both the VTA and Caltrain. Almost 470 parking spaces in those lots, so it makes up a substantial part of the total overall supply, with the peak demand only reaching 28%. Now, this is in large part due to declines in transit ridership from the pandemic. We did interview and meet with the VTA to discuss the historic data they had, which they were able to provide to us. So we were able to find that pre-pandemic, when transit ridership was at a normal level, they did have almost 2/3 of the lot empty. That still means that even at the peak time, there was about 170 empty spaces in that lot. So considerable vacancy, and also they determined that quite a few parkers who were there were actually not transit riders. Now, granted, I'm well aware that the Caltrain has added a new train recently to service Gilroy, but transit ridership levels are still, I think, kind of struggling to get back to what they were. On-street parking duration. So as I mentioned, we did collect the amount of time that vehicles were parked on street throughout the downtown. Most of the downtown is unregulated parking, so there's no time limits or anything of that sort. However, in the core downtown, there are many 2-hour time limits. And what we found was that most people tended to obey the time limits, apologies. So about 80% stayed 2 hours or less. You have about 10%, maybe minor infraction, 2 to 3 hours. And then there was about 10% of the vehicles that were staying anywhere from 3 hours as high as 12 hours. So what this indicates to us is that generally there's pretty good compliance with time limits. However, there are clearly some long-term parkers who are staying in prime on-street parking spaces, and they very well could be employees. So the key findings from the analysis, just really quickly, looking at it as a whole, the downtown has a lot of empty parking at peak hour. Again, that's looking at the entirety altogether. It's almost 1,800 vacant parking spaces at peak hour. That said, there are what we call hot spots, particularly around the core of the downtown. If you're trying to find a parking space on Monterey between 5th and 6th, you're trying to park in the public off-street lots right off there, it would be maybe harder to find a spot. It might give the perception, and we heard this from some folks, that it's hard to find parking. So there is this kind of dichotomy going on. In trying to identify the causes of this, we found that, this is a lot of the feedback we received during the community input, was there was a lot of feedback on insufficient information and wayfinding to different facilities about how to get to different parking lots. The fact that there is a lot of parking in the downtown, so parking supply, but a lot of it, frankly, is reserved private parking. So even if people want to park there currently, they're not necessarily allowed to. And lastly, safety. Safety was a concern that we heard come up repeatedly, and that people felt that even if there were spaces, for example, 3 or 4 blocks away, they didn't feel safe necessarily parking there and walking to their destination. As Carl mentioned, too, we also examined future build-out conditions. And for that, we looked at the city's general plan build-out, which is pretty large. So by 2040, so we projected essentially 1,200 new residential units, about 850,000 square feet of commercial. So it's a pretty sizable amount to add to the downtown. If the city were to add this much development to the downtown, we calculated it out about a 285 space deficit. So this is basically a way to say, yes, there is a lot of parking availability currently. As you build out over time, that surplus will shrink. And if you did ever get to this full general plan build out, you probably require more robust management measures in the interim. I will note, too, that as part of our study, we had an economics consultant from Strategic Economics on this because we really understood and valued the input of the businesses and understanding how the economy, how and if parking affected the downtown economy. And so our consultant went and broke down a lot of what we call co-star data on retail sales in the core downtown by block, preserving the anonymity of different businesses. And what we found was essentially over time that from 2016 to today, that the downtown in itself, and again, this might not be a surprise, but retail sales have been declining well before the pandemic, from 2016 going into the pandemic. But talking with the consultant, we found that this is not atypical. Many different small California communities are having the same issues, essentially, and it stems back from the 2008 recession. And in this case, looking back at the data and this parking supply that we have, we could determine that it's very likely this decline has nothing to do with parking. It's really driven by other factors. And what the determination made was that a lot of the businesses that had gone out of business from 2016 to today were smaller specialty retail, and which is, again, very common, right? If you think of like a hardware store, a lot of people are not going downtown for the local hardware store anymore. They might go to Lowe's or they might buy it online. But there has been a conversion to more what we call experiential retail or destination retail, where it's a brewery, it's a coffee shop. It's something where you're not necessarily buying a good, like a hammer, but you're having an experience with friends. And so there was very encouraging data to show that the downtown economy is rebounding from that. So what do we do about this? So we developed a whole host of parking strategies. And the way we approached the strategies was in a few different ways. One is we really wanted to make sure that strategies were addressing multiple users' concerns, from patrons to employees and residents, to the businesses themselves, making sure that whatever we were recommending did not have an adverse effect on the downtown merchants. And as such, also not putting forward something that's not cost effective at the end of the day, right? We're well aware that some of these strategies might be very effective in managing demand, but they could be extremely costly. We also, as you'll see in a second, intentionally phased strategies based on the need, the current and future need. Right now, there's a lot of available parking, and so we didn't want to put forward strategies now that were essentially throwing the kitchen sink at something and over-regulating currently. So with that, we did develop some immediate action strategies as part of this. I believe there's 7 of them. And again, most of these immediate action strategies were specifically chosen because they are easier to implement and cheaper. Doesn't mean that they don't work well. Some of them do work very well. But they're definitely easier to put forward. Starting out with wayfinding. Again, we heard from different folks that oftentimes the challenge is just being able to simply find a parking spot. They don't even know that some of these lots are available. So as an example, maybe creating better wayfinding signage to the lot at 7th and Eagleberry. People coming in from out of town, particularly visitors, might not be aware of this. Static signage is relatively cheap. You can better distribute parking demand by doing this. And as this picture shows too, there is even pedestrian signage that can be used that to show people how far it is to walk to different locations. As I mentioned, the VTA Caltrain parking lot has considerable vacancy right now, even at peak hour. In talking with the VTA, they do have long-term development plans that are a little uncertain right now, but it sounds like at some point in the future those lots will be developed. But there is opportunity in the short term to be able to have a discussion with VTA to better utilize those spaces for the public. I would also note that even in the future, once development does occur there, because the development is within a half mile of the station, according to AB 2097, which took effect January 1st, the city can require any parking built on that site to be publicly accessible. So just keep that in your cap for the future. Shared parking agreements. This is something that's becoming much more actively used in different communities around California, and it essentially creates partnerships between the public and private entities. As I mentioned earlier, there is a large amount of private parking that's empty. And, you know, I'm sure everyone has had experiences with this where you go to park there and you can't because obviously it's reserved to particular users. A shared parking agreement is one in which the public sector says, you know, we want you to open up your lot to users, maybe just during certain hours when you're not in operation, and we will work with you to compensate you in some way. So it could be through cleaning, it could be through lighting, it could be liability, it could be financial compensation. I actually have some good shared parking legal templates to share with the city if it's interested. But by doing so, you actually open up and create more parking without actually having to construct new parking, which can be extraordinarily expensive. Simply mobility information, getting the resources out there. Right now, for example, the city's website is relatively limited in what it offers. There are other jurisdictions that serve as good examples, and really advertising what, frankly, are free resources. The VTA, 511.org, offer things like free guaranteed ride home to employees, free ride matching, free van pooling subsidies. And these are things that oftentimes people are not aware of. And so being able to get that information set up for the city and working with the chamber and Visit Gilroy to make sure that employees in particular are aware of these resources is great. Again, free. So let's take advantage of free. Parking regulations. So as I mentioned earlier, most of the downtown, if you look at it as a whole, is unregulated. There are no time limits. Really, the 2-hour time limits that are in effect are from 9 to 6, and primarily the core of the downtown from 4th to 7th. Public feedback was a little varied on this subject. Some people said they were happy with the 2-hour time limits. Some people said they wanted 3 hours. You know, you have an economy that's shifting more to an early evening economy with the bars and restaurants that are coming downtown. In the future, you may want to explore shifting the times in which parking is enforced, maybe instead of 9 to 6, going to 10 to 7. But right now, there's pretty good compliance in the spaces that are there. But the one thing that we did hear from a couple businesses is a request to expand the time limits on other parts of Monterey, that maybe employees or other long-term parkers. I think the one I'm thinking of in particular, I think was up near somewhere in the 1st to 4th Street area, and a request to put time limits in there. And so the thinking here is to say, hey, maybe explore putting in 4-hour time limits in those areas. They're a little bit less restricted than 2 hours, so as a patron you could stay there longer, but it's still an incentive to get employees who may be parking there 8 hours off the street. You know, we are aware that there are a couple parklets downtown currently that have been unchanged for quite a while. You know, some cities have adopted parklet design standards. Just something to keep in mind in terms of if you are going to pursue that at some point, to keep in mind things like aesthetic and safety standards, proper location, and so forth. And lastly, I didn't know this, you actually have this on the agenda later on tonight, but now I do. It's essentially leasing parking spaces. Some of the feedback that we heard from some folks in the downtown is there was some concern over food trucks downtown and how to deal with that. And we said, gosh, you know, there's different ways to be able to manage that if you're parking either in time-limited spaces or unregulated spaces, but you can establish rules around that. You can charge for those spaces if you want, if the city deems that it's an unfair competition with current businesses. Every city is a little different. I'll leave that to you. But, you know, in terms, by adopting these standards, just keep in mind that you oftentimes want to locate these sorts of things in visible areas that are good for the food trucks, but maybe ones that don't cause congestion or pedestrian queuing or safety issues like that. So that is all the list of the immediate strategies. As I mentioned, there is what I call a phase 2 strategies. These set of strategies are very effective at managing parking demand, but they take a lot more effort to implement and higher cost. And in our assessment, you don't really need these at this point. Now, again, the city always can pursue whatever you wish, but again, we're not recommending these for implementation. This is something in the future as the downtown builds out. And they vary considerably here. I basically loaded them all into one slide here. From increased parking enforcement and ambassadors to really welcome people and enforce the rules downtown, to having transportation demand management and bike parking regulations to get people into not driving as much, potentially forming a transportation management association. The one that always, causes quite a stir is parking pricing. Again, we're not recommending this at this point. And we did survey people to get their opinions on that, and there was decidedly a majority of people who were not interested. To things like residential and employee permits. So there are ways to better manage parking, but frankly, the demand right now is not high enough to really warrant this level of what I consider, active management and regulation. But again, that's at your discretion. So, try to keep that concise. I know it was a very hefty report, but we'd love to hear feedback from you. And again, our next steps would be then to tailor the report and come back to you.
All right, thank you. Ty, when you can, my screen isn't where it should be, so I can't see if there are council members raising their hands to talk. Oh, you can't either? Yeah, it says waiting for, as if we already made a motion. Okay, so he'll work on that. I have some questions. Maybe I'll just start while he's working on that, and then I can see. What is the inventory of spaces that are public?
So the public, I'll scroll back here.
Yeah, because I can't get to the report to remind myself what that was.
Yeah, it's just so for everyone's viewing pleasure here. So about 3,200 spaces here. The on-street and the public off-street are what we call public spaces.
Okay, so of the it says 3,230 in the page that
I apologize. We updated a number in the interim.
Oh, okay. So. But of that, so 1,244 are private.
Yes.
So if you removed, I understand this is how you did your report, but I just assumed this would be a parking management of public parking, not of private parking. So if you removed private, do we have, what does that do to the number of spaces? Did you look at it that way or no?
Yes, we did. So I just advanced the slide here so you can see. So even if you take out the private off-street parking, yes, on-street and public off-street is more utilized, but it's still 53% and 47%.
Okay, so it's still sufficient, right?
It is.
It's still sufficient. It's about how we manage it yeah.
But I would encourage you, though, in order to really achieve good parking management, it's good to be able to address both the private side and the public side. The shared parking agreements, for example, that's completely optional. There's no requirement to do that. But oftentimes, private lot owners will be interested in doing it and actually open up more of your public supply.
I'm not so sure, but okay. I know a few and they're not, but okay.
That's okay.
No,
It
I know.
depends. It depends, yeah.
Okay. And then with respect, when you look at the VTA lot, that's one that I, for one, have been working very hard to give people a reason to be parking there to use transit. So I would hesitate to consider that parking I'm just speaking to the council here, really, that we would not want to depend on the VTA parking lot when we're trying to get transit users to use that parking lot. That's what I would say. And then when you say peak hour, it's 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., right?
Yes, for the counts.
Yeah, for the counts. So, which is strange to me because I would have thought more like in the evening time, but no?
No, not overall. Again, the patterns of demand will shift over the course of the day. So I'm showing you in this slide, for example, a snapshot.
Mm-hmm.
We could have come up with, 24 snapshots of every single hour, 25, anyways. But, in the evening, for example, you do have certain blocks that will get a little busier, particularly in front of like a restaurant or a bar or things like that. But while those are actually busier, some of the other blocks and streets or off-street lots have lost cars. So the overall occupancy is actually lower.
So do you know what the peak hour is for Monterey Street between 4th and 6th, or that's not how you looked at this?
We didn't look at it specifically in terms of a single street, but it's easy enough to do. All the data is there.
Okay.
I mean, even looking at, for example, this view right here, and again, this is why we've also broken into zones, because someone parking on 2nd Street is probably not going to walk to 9th Street. And so we wanted to be cognizant of the fact that people will not walk that far. So if you look at the map here in front of you, in the core downtown, you'll see actually most of those blocks in there are either orange, yellow, or red, which means they're pretty well occupied during the middle of the day there. And again, parking patterns will shift somewhat. That is bound to happen, of course.
Right. I just think, at least my experience is lately anyway, going to the core of the downtown, it is pretty much impossible to park on Monterey Street in the core in the evening. But that was not your experience.
No, that's not what the counts show. No, again, is it on one block or maybe 2 blocks? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, between 4th and, in the core and on 5th Street between Eagleberry and Monterey.
What we found from the survey, because we actually did ask people in the survey, how far do you walk typically from your parking space? And 90% of people said they're able to park either 2 blocks or less from their destination.
Oh, definitely.
So it's not...
No, 2 blocks, yes.
Yeah, so again, it's not a long distance, so that's why I say it's... And I think that's also contributing to the fact that you could end up having one block face, the one that you want to park on, be full, but maybe around the corner it could be mostly empty.
Okay, Councilmember Tovar, I
Thank
see.
you. Yeah, and thank you for the report. I actually did read just about all of it.
Oh, okay.
So, I do have some questions, but then later on, after I have a recommendation, hopefully that we can add to the phase 1. But looking at your report really quick, the study was done before the Eagleberry and 7th Street parking lot went up, right?
Correct.
So, so there's actually more parking. So that's not incorporated in this.
There are 145 more spaces, I believe.
I just want to make sure we do that. Okay, and then you talked about the 2-hour and 4-hour restrictions. How has that worked with other cities?
Well, it's dependent upon your enforcement, right? If you once you put in time limits, there will be some people who will comply and some people who will not. So will it be better than currently? Yes, because some people will choose to comply and they will not park there anymore. Will some people choose not to comply? Yes, because I think there's not a high degree of enforcement. So that's why we say we're trying to choose measures here that were very relatively low cost that we're trying to provide a little bit of turnover.
So it comes down to enforcement, basically.
It does come down to enforcement. And one thing, actually, I apologize, but I failed to mention here is, and you read the report, but we were tasked with and we provided a whole host of financing options as part of the report, but we didn't really receive any feedback from staff or others about which were preferable. So that's why we've left it kind of open-ended in the report currently. But understanding that something like enforcement is not free, and if you do choose to employ that as an option, it can be effective, but you really want to make sure that it's constructive and not punitive. I would just say that.
Okay. I have one more question.
Okay.
And again, we're going to have this discussion later regarding the food trucks, which I'm in support of. But thinking about that, and I'm going to read to what I typed up real quick. So, how have other cities added parklet design and incorporated lease space for food trucks?
Okay, so you're addressing kind of like 2 of the recommendations: the parklet design and the food trucks.
Right, and where I'm going with that is while preserving parking. Okay, so when you look at those 2, when you see other cities, how have they preserved the parking when it comes to those 2?
Well, it's really, it's a value and a judgment call based on the jurisdiction. So there are more cities now that, for parklets, for example, that are actually charging money for, and they pass it via ordinance, and I can, I was talking to one of your other staff members earlier, I'm going to give some feedback on that too. But, and it varies in terms of how much they're charging. I'm starting a study just right now in Los Altos, and they charge a fee for their on-street, for their parklets, but it's a very, very low fee because they're trying to encourage the use of parklets. And again, there's going to be unbounded disagreement about what the right fee is. And then you also have to make a quantitative and frankly qualitative judgment about what the right number of parklets are for a given town. Here, you do have I would say quite a bit of opportunity to put more parklets in if they wanted to, although my understanding, having talked with downtown businesses, is that there's not a high demand for them right now, but that's just what we heard. Typically, these parklets also really better serve restaurants, coffee shops, bars, things that like of that sort, rather than someone who is like a service, like a retailer, like a hair salon or something like that. And so you just want to keep that in mind, because some businesses will be definitely more pro, I found, parklets, and others a little bit less so, because they more value the parking.
Right. Well, yeah, and I want to be careful when you say that there isn't a high demand. I think from my conversations with businesses, if the process was easier and if there was, the ability for the city to assist in whatever way, that whole belief would change, because, again, right now it's difficult for that to happen. So
that could be the case. That very well could be the case.
Okay, I'll save my other questions for later.
Okay, Councilmember Armendariz.
I might have forgotten my question.
You can hold. I can go to public comment.
No, it was regarding parking structures. Was there any exploration of that or any feedback from the community about a need? And at what point in terms of parking demand on a trajectory would you see Gilroy needing a parking structure in terms of years?
Yeah. So in terms of, we could better plot that out. I'll say right now, you do not need a parking structure currently. That would be, they come at enormous costs. I'll back up a second. So parking structures normally, typically, depending on where you are, will cost between about $30,000 to $50,000 per space. It does not include your operations and maintenance costs, which are about $500 per space per year. I'm giving you very general numbers. I've seen parking structures that have been $80,000 a space. I've seen some that are $30,000 a space. But regardless, they're very expensive, so we want to be careful in implementing them. I've also seen some communities, like I did some work down in Oxnard years ago, and they thought, gosh, we're going to build this parking structure, and that's going to help stimulate economic development. Well, they built a 4-story parking structure, and the first story was used, and the other 3 stories remained empty for years, because having the parking is not necessarily a destination in itself for people to come to. That said, you do need it, right, if you have sufficient demand. And so what I would say is, between your scale now versus your full general plan build out, you could get here maybe in 10 years and look at it again and say, gosh, this actually may pencil out for us at this time. To be honest, it's also a function of land value. Building a parking structure here is not the same thing as building a parking structure in Palo Alto. For example, the land values are just higher. It makes more sense to be able to build structured parking in a setting like that. Again, land values here could change, and it might change the math of the equation. So I apologize, I don't have a perfect answer for you at this moment, but that would be certainly something to look at in the future. But I would recommend that the city always weigh it against the cost of other options.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bracco?
Yes, I share the mayor's concern over how it was done. I'm concerned. The parking problems we have are in like a 3-block area of Monterey Street. And by throwing in all these other parkings and city hall parking, it skews everything. It makes it look better than it is. Because, and this is a problem I addressed when the council approved hiring someone from out of town to come and tell us that it's not as bad as you experience when you go downtown. Don't believe your lying eyes. We spent $1 million a number of years ago and did wayfinding signs and everything downtown. I don't believe that's a problem, because our public lots are full all the time. You can't park in them. And you're not addressing the one parking lot across from the post office on what do we do to handle that? Because it's full of parking from the post office, from their employees. They take up the parking. So, I don't believe there's much of a turnover in our public lots. And then we have other parking lots on the other side of Monterey. We have one that's not utilized at all. And there's signs pointing it out, but I don't know if it's just too far. And then a lot of our parking lots and side parking, it's dark. So especially females, they don't want to walk on those dark streets at night. So, I mean, I would like to see that addressed. Thank you.
Sure. We do, just to speak to that for a second, we did talk with one of the previous project managers here at the city about improved lighting and more safety measures, and they had said that, it's not really a transportation measure, so asked that we not include that in the report. We can include it if that's what you think is a positive, a good option for it.
Oh, no, I just want to make a comment to
that. Sorry. And then just last two, it was in terms of, whether there's a parking problem or not, there were certainly some, it was the public feedback on this really stretched the gamut. There were some folks who said, yes, I cannot find a parking space right in front of where I want to go. This is a problem. And we had other people say, there is no parking problem. It's really varied across the board here. We looked at the downtown as a whole, simply to look at the whole downtown, because that's essentially what we're tasked with, knowing that all your demand is highly concentrated in the middle. So I do understand. I just want to acknowledge what you said, that, yeah, your demand is concentrated in the middle, but even looking at, over the course of 3 days, many different hours, there are still opportunities nearby to park, generally speaking. Now, again, you might not be able to park right where you want to, and that's oftentimes what people want.
These people that you talked to, how many people did you talk to?
I'd have to go. These are not people I talked to. We actually had an online survey and collected feedback from people. So these are people who actually wrote to us and said, yes, there's a parking problem. No, there's not a parking problem. I think we actually have it in the report. So you could read some of the actual. The 65. Yeah. So you can go in and see the comments yourself. So that's why I say it's varied, I would say. Thank you.
Councilmember Marks is next. I'm sorry, Councilmember Tovar.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say it was 65.
Oh, okay. So your hand is not raised anymore?
I can't take it down.
Oh, I don't. Okay, there, it's down. Okay, Councilmember
Thank
Tovar,
you.
you have another question?
Yeah, well, more of a comment, and it goes to what Councilmember Brocco said. It sickens me that somebody who no longer works here and didn't live here recommended that we don't look into lighting, because that's absolutely false. Because when we first talked about this, that was one things they said that we needed to do for our parking lots, the one that's on 7th Street or the one that's on Railroad out there, and that we would never utilize that until we made those parking lots safe. And to hear that somebody recommended, from the city recommended, that we do not include lighting and safety, I mean, that's
just to be clear,
it's idiotic if that's what you're telling me.
No, so what I'm saying is the idea was that lighting was a separate issue that was being handled in a different way, but not necessarily in this report. So it wasn't that lighting wasn't important or valued, but, and again, I'm happy to bring it up in this report, but again, there's general safety concerns that affect parking overall.
Right.
That, I mean, frankly, we can't control everything. I mean, there are, better enforcement, downtown ambassadors are often things that downtowns have employed to try to improve the feeling of safety. Lighting is great, cameras are great, but what people really need to feel safe is other people on the street.
Right, but we have to start somewhere.
No, absolutely.
Right?
I'm not saying no.
We're going to go through this for years and years and years and not actually get to the root of the problem, where those parking lots are never going to be utilized.
Yep.
Because we don't have the funds to hire a few more police officers. So what do we do in the meantime? Again, being proactive and not reactive, which I will say here, right? So, I mean, it would be nice to have something in there.
I know. Okay,
Yeah.
so
That was my
Council,
comment.
it's quite a thorough report that's going to take us a lot of time, I think, all of us to digest, and we just need to start with some direction here. And as we narrow down where we think the parking problems are, then we can address other things. Like if this is a particular lot that we think more people should be using, then what do we need to do to make them use it? That's okay, but you have to, I think this project was meant to identify where the spaces are. Are they being used? How frequently are they being used? When are they being used? So that we can then determine how to move forward with all kinds of things, whether it's lighting that gets people to park there, whether it's with time restrictions, whether we enforce certain ones and not others, whatever it is. Okay?
Yeah,
So,
no. And
right. All right.
I'll
Okay.
do.
Yeah.
my comments.
Okay, so we have at least one person who I know wants to speak. So Matthew Gallion, you've got 3 minutes at the podium. Good evening.
Thank you for taking the time to hear me. What I'd like to talk about in reference is page number 306 out of your agenda packet for this evening, which does highlight that parking is not an issue in downtown, and according to the people that they heard from for this survey. What is a big issue is attracting more people to downtown. Currently, the people feel that downtown is not a safe place. It's not well lit. There are homeless people all about, and they don't feel comfortable parking 2 blocks away to go walk to the place they want to go to because they might encounter some unsavory characters, or they just might not feel safe in general. So I would caution you guys on advising changing up parking and things like that, imposing restrictions for people that want to support the businesses in downtown. And I'd like to encourage you to make it more friendly for them, make it more friendly for food trucks. You know, that's an issue in here. They want to see food trucks in downtown. They want to see new businesses in downtown. They want to come to downtown. They want to feel safe. They want to spend their money in downtown. And so while we're going through all this, and it's a very detailed report, and I happen to go through a good amount of it, parking's not an issue. Whether one small little tiny area of it is, you have a whole lot other area to park in. And if you don't want to walk the couple blocks, then perhaps there's a safety concern. Perhaps it's a different concern other than X number of parking spots in X number of area, or someone stayed there, you know, a little bit longer than 2 hours because they were enjoying an establishment in downtown. So I would just like to caution you and take some time to go through the report and come up with a good strategy for it, and perhaps think of ways to make downtown more vibrant and attract more people to downtown. I would love to see that in the future, 100% full parking everywhere, because our downtown is booming and everybody wants to be down here. But it's currently not there, and we have a large number of vacant spaces at any given time during the day. Because I'm down there probably more than most people, and I see it. You can drive down there almost every night, and there's plenty of parking for everyone. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other speakers?
No speaker cards, Madam Mayor.
Okay, closing public comment. This comes back to council. We're just looking for direction. Where do we want staff to focus their time, given all the things that are in this report, even if we can't come up with everything tonight? But Councilmember Tovar?
Thank you. Well, I have a recommendation looking at the phase 1 and phase 2, obviously, and you had mentioned, or the strategy had mentioned that phase 2 wasn't really a priority or wasn't high on the list, right? That we really didn't need those, is what I think you said.
So I guess the best way to put it is you can employ any of those, but just expect them to come at higher cost.
Exactly.
Management.
So what I'm looking at, what I would like to recommend for phase 1 is that we add the parking business district recommendation that's in phase 2, which is part of our phase 2 recommendation. As part of our phase 2 recommendation, right? Since we're already undergoing a feasibility study, public outreach, and our P-bid for downtown. So again, I don't see, I mean, it's a match, right? So obviously when you look, you know, I'm talking about downtown, things that we can, you know, with street cleaning, sidewalk cleaning, lighting, graffiti removal, signage, security, all of that can be incorporated by incorporating, you know, what I just said, the P-bid and also the parking. So I would like to add that to phase 1.
So that means you're asking the rest of this council if they want to. Yeah, he's not giving you
Sorry,
direction.
no,
that's fine. I'm just making notes.
I don't want to look over there because they're going to tell me to shut up. So. But no,
Okay.
that's what I'm saying. I would like for us to add that component to phase 1 because, again, it helps us eventually when we get there with some of the funding that we're talking about that we may not have. So,
Which one in particular, Councilman?
it's the phase 2. It's the parking benefit district, the PBD.
Okay. I'm just going to focus on the first phase first, and
Yeah.
Well,
can we go back to the first phase and
Yeah.
just look at those strategies again? But a couple of things are we going to speak with?
Yeah, I think Councilmember Marks is speaking right now.
You know, let's go back to phase 1, and I think we should do this by phases to see how we feel about each part of the phase.
I mean, each individual.
Was there-
okay, I see parking regulations,
Well, we don't
okay.
have everything on one slide.
Still waiting for phase one.
Is phase one the immediate action strategies?
Yes.
Is that, okay,
Oh, all
that's
right.
phase
Yeah,
one.
that's what I'm looking at, yeah.
Okay.
I apologize. We don't have them all summarized on one slide.
Okay.
All right,
So, yeah.
okay.
On
Then
page 73.
Can we go just quickly through the immediate?
It's,
just
it's
so
on
we
page
can-
162, if
162,
you, if you
okay.
can access that.
Yes, okay.
And Councilmember Armendariz, did you have a question on on this part of it?
On, from phase one,
Yeah.
something that I did like is the idea of a public-private partnership. I think we have some, some vacant buildings, some places that close, like the dentist shop next to the deli, where the motorcycle shop used to be, right between 4th and 5th. That, I mean, it's empty. It's empty after a certain hour, after 2, 3 o'clock, and I'd like staff to have some conversations or engage our downtown business association to talk to some of the property owners to see if we can get some partnership there from some of our private lot owners,
Okay.
especially on the ends of town, right on the ends of downtown. There's a lot of private parking that can be, if we could incentivize it in some way too, I'd love to explore that, because there's some spots that would be good parking if they were improved, like at Old Gilroy in Monterey. There's a lot of parking there next to the Garcias, if they had an improved parking lot.
Okay. Councilmember Marks, did you have something to add in this
I
section?
just got to 162. Go ahead. You can-
Okay, so under the immediate action strategies, I mean, I absolutely think we should be identifying where our parking lots are better. So, and I agree, I know we do, Councilmember Brock, we do have signs, but they really aren't that great. And I love the ones that say it's a 6-minute walk to here or a 3-minute walk to there from a certain parking lot. That would really help. So I personally would support strategy 1. I wouldn't go to strategy 2 yet, which is the VTA parking lot, because again, I would really like to keep that to encourage transit riders. Shared parking agreements, that's fine. I have yet to come up with a private owner who would want to do that, but that doesn't mean there isn't one out there. Mobility information, absolutely. That's just us, the city, putting out better information on how people can get around, whether it's through our website or whatever other sources are. And on-street time restrictions should definitely be there. I was surprised to see as many complying as they do based on the survey, because I thought it was worse than that. But I'm glad that it's at least that much. But it is, I know that it is very much abused in the later evening hours. It's not, it doesn't turn over in the evening as much in the core downtown.
Can I just add one
Yeah,
comment on that?
absolutely.
I mean, it's also, it's within your right to give direction too. Right now, for example, your time limits go from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., which means it's a 2-hour time
Right,
limit.
after 6, it's a free-for-all, right.
After 4 o'clock, it's a free-for-all. After the 4 o'clock, you stay 2 hours, and you can basically stay
Right.
there until tomorrow at 11 a.m.
Right.
So if the council's direction, I mentioned it earlier, but if the council's direction is to look at shifting your time, because your morning parking demand is at 9 a.m. is not high,
right.
But maybe shifting that forward an hour or two, we can certainly look at that.
Yeah.
But again, I'll leave that to you.
Okay, so I would support that. I would also support parklet design standards and leasing parking spaces. That should absolutely be things we do. So for me, it's pretty much everything on the immediate action strategies, which is phase 1, with the exception of looking at VTA. Not that I care if someone wants to take the time to look at VTA, that's fine, but I know what VTA's position is. So does that, maybe we'll do it in this section by section. Is there council support
I think that's
for
a good starting spot
yes.
for staff.
Okay, Jimmy wants to say something.
I think Mr. Tovar's request about the parking benefit district can be addressed shortly when we come and give a report on the PBID. We're working through that process right now with the downtown. We'll have a report shortly. So that might be the springboard to the next part of that conversation. So I know that's in strategy 2, but we're already working on it, so it's going to come back anyway. And so I think that could help address those questions.
Let me just make sure, no, and I appreciate that, but when you say it's coming back, my concern, what information is going to be brought back? If it's not working, I mean, I'm just going to get rid of it. We're going to just dump it. that's my concern, is that here's an opportunity for us to say, let's incorporate that into our phase one instead of hearing that it's not working for us so far. You follow what I'm saying? I just worry that, that ship's going to pass and we're not going to have that opportunity to incorporate that, given what it can do for our downtown.
Thank you, Mr. Tovar. The report will provide to council will determine if there's a legal threshold met to establish a PBID election. If there's not, then we are done with the process. If there is, then the process will continue. So there is a threshold we have to get from the property owners before we continue down the PBID process.
They have to buy in, enough of them.
No, I know they have to
can't,
buy in,
yeah.
right.
So, okay, so I'm coming back to council to see if we have consensus for this phase one part. Councilor, consent, I thought you had something to say? Do we have consensus?
Yeah.
Okay, so we will look at everything. I'm just suggesting accept the VTA one because that's not going to go anywhere. Yeah, go ahead.
Madam Mayor, I think it's important for the consultant to explain what he does with that direction, because the report states you're going to finalize your report. So I think for expectations, what does this mean now that you have this kind of focus?
Thank you.
So as I understand you correctly, the direction is to pursue 6 of the 7 strategies that are listed in the immediate action, and basically take the VTA one off the table, which is fine. That's easy enough to take off. We had already discussed the parking regulations about exploring potentially looking at different times. So that's one change that we'll look at. We'll have to go back to the data to see what makes sense or not. The other recommendations in here, parklet design standards, leasing parking spaces, the mobility information. I mean, the shared parking, what we'll do is actually add, or we'll provide it to the city. We have a draft legal document that the city can use as a template for actually setting up potential parking agreements. And I'm happy to actually broker a conversation with a contact of mine who has implemented over 80 of these. If the desire is to actually have a person who's experienced in this, I'm happy to do that as well. On these other pieces, I guess, I'm not really sure if you're asking me to make changes, for example, to the mobility information, or just saying it's good as is.
It's probably a direct, that you're saying that you're recommending if the staff would implement it. Yeah.
Yes, I think there's some that we just take because they're administrative, but there's the pieces that council's looking to have developed more so they can give us as staff more direction, and I think you've outlined that perfectly.
Mayor, before we go on, again.
Well, I don't think he's finished.
Okay.
No, I'm done.
Okay, sorry.
So, and I understand we're going to come back with the PBID, but we all know there's a difference between the PBID and a parking benefit district. Is what I'm asking for, because, again, that can help us with lighting, security, enforcement. So phase 2 strategies, I would like to bring the parking benefit district into phase 1.
Can I also ask just a clarifying question as well? We kind of lumped them together, and I apologize for this, just for brevity's sake on the slide, but there's and I was actually going to ask the same question because a PBID and a PBD are two different things.
Right.
And similarly, there's also a Transportation Management Association which you can set up. So there's different ways to go about this. But again, I don't know enough about your PBID process to see how that overlaps too. So I'll just wait for your direction.
Right. But maybe you can educate us on the parking benefit.
Well, the parking benefit district, the idea of it is that any revenues that you generate from that district, whether they be meter revenues, which frankly don't exist right now, to anything to parking in lieu fees or fines, stay within that district. And they're used for the purposes of that body, which normally the parking benefit district is comprised of a body of private representatives and public to be able to jointly represent the city.
Which is beneficial.
Well, but nothing this council majority just said to move forward on brings in any revenue. We're not talking about revenue right now. Okay. So we have to wait and see. I think we need to wait and see. I know we don't want to wait, but we have to see what this process of our downtown businesses turns out to be, how we move forward with any kind of district.
Okay. So
and if we get to where we're going to start fining for parking and we hire an officer and we actually enforce through punitive, which is what that is, right? That's a punitive enforcement. Then we can talk about where that money's going and reinvesting it. But so far, we're trying not to take punitive things. Okay?
Yeah, I'm not looking at punitive, I'm looking at the benefits
far.
of it, so.
Well, it has to have a funding stream, right? If not, why have a district?
So, Jimmy, does this give you enough, is this enough information for staff, or is there something more we should be addressing here tonight on this item?
No, I think we get clear
Are
direction.
we going to hit phase 2? Just because I have something for phase 2.
Go ahead and ask the question, because I think he was just trying to say that.
No.
Okay,
I was
go.
going to suggest, because I think the last report from our chief, it's been years, but lets us know that the downtown area isn't more dangerous than any other part of town. It's just a perception of it, right? And so things like lighting or, law enforcement being more present, those type of things, they cost money. But can we look into what an ambassador would do? Because you were saying, right, people feel safe when there's more people down there. And is there voluntary ambassador programs or things like that? Can we look into that? Because, if we don't have the crime stats, we can't justify it.
I don't have the crime stats,
we do.
Unfortunately, yeah. But just to expand a little bit about what an ambassador program is you'll see this in some cities where essentially they're either volunteers, most of the time they're paid staff, but it's not necessarily a high paid thing. But folks who are essentially, normally you'll see them around, they'll be wearing like a red jacket or something that's very noticeable. And they're there basically to help and assist people, right? So they're there to walk people to their cars. They're there to give people directions. They're there people, and again, you only can maybe need a few of them, but just so you know they're around. And so it's, again though, typically you do need some sort of funding source for this, even if it's relatively limited. Which is why it ended up in this strategy. Trust me, we went back and forth on this about what strategies to include up front and not, because there was definitely a feeling that safety needs to be improved, but we didn't have much direction on all the financial options that we laid forth.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, are we ready to move on for now? Thank you.
No, but.
Well, sorry, Fred.
Right.
You are one.
It's all right.
Thank you, though.
We'll talk about generating funds.
Okay, 11.2, review of the City of Gilroy Municipal Code, Chapter 16A, Article 2, mobile vending permits and enforcement. And is this going to be, yes, it's going to be Bryce.
Yes, good Mayor and Council. Staff is coming before Council to discuss the current mobile vending code and the transition to more proactive enforcement, and to see if there's any desire of Council to issue any direction related to that before we start down that road. So briefly, mobile vendors are regulated by City Code Chapter 16A, adopted in 1997, so it's 26 years old. It's intended to regulate traffic safety, litter, parking, and health and safety issues related to mobile vending. It's important to note that based on the provisions, it's definitely more geared towards ice cream trucks and that type of mobile vending. And we'll kind of go over that here in a little bit in the provisions we talk about them. So some of those provisions, mobile vendors are required to get a permit from the police department. Amongst other information that's required, the process includes a background check. Again, really kind of focused towards ice cream trucks and things that would attract children, to make sure that anybody that's doing that vending doesn't have any moral turpitude in their, or evidence of it in their history. Mobile vendors cannot locate in private property without property owner approval, and then also, depending on the length of time, a temporary use permit possibly. And then they cannot locate near elementary or junior high schools. They must relocate every 10 minutes by a distance of at least 100 feet, again per code as it is written today. And they cannot locate in a commercial district, C1, 2, or 3. So mobile vendors are required to get several permits. For the city, there's two. There's the mobile vendor permit from the police department. $152 is the initial application fee, and then $79 each year for renewal. That's based on the current fee schedule. They're also required to get a business license from the finance department. $40 base fee plus a $40 increment add on top based on gross receipts. Again, that's also in our user fees. For food-related mobile vendors, they're also required to get a county permit from the Department of Public Health. The vendor permit can range anywhere from approximately $230 to $840. And then there's also facility inspection and other permitting requirements. Those costs can vary from several hundred to several $1,000s, depending on what permits are required at the county's discretion. So looking at enforcement, talking to the police department representatives, during and after the pandemic, they've been primarily complaint-driven. So before the pandemic, according to the PD, they've averaged 6 licensed vendors per year. Last year, they only had 2 licensed mobile vendors, and this year so far they've had none, though they did comment that 3 applications are currently in process. The post-pandemic decrease in licensed mobile vendors has typically been associated with non-enforcement during the pandemic. Then there was also some questions when SB 972 was being adopted, which is the sidewalk vending permit, which that was recently resolved with council not too long ago. And then complaint-driven versus proactive enforcement has also been an allocation of resources issue, making sure that we have enough staff to accomplish what we must do in enforcing laws and versus mobile vendor enforcement and what staffing we have available at the time. But staff is shifting towards proactive enforcement in line with the sidewalk vending approach. So we're looking at that sidewalk vending process and education before enforcement as the general model. And so police and code enforcement are coordinating that effort at this point in time, looking towards the early part of 2024. Is looking right now and coordinating on enforcing the city code that's in effect currently, which we anticipate that we will receive complaints, again, primarily around the 10-minute relocation requirement. In the code, there is no exception to that. There's no differentiation on types of mobile vendors in the code, so every vendor must comply with the 10-minute relocation requirement. On one hand, it does resolve any parking issues with mobile vendors. They can still locate parking stalls, but again, only for 10 minutes. We will likely receive complaints from food trucks primarily that would be able to just start warming up their equipment before having to relocate again. And then additionally, the commercial zone prohibition, I mentioned the commercial zone C1 through 3, has diminished over time. So this code being adopted in 1997, you have areas where different specific plans have been adopted. So prime example is downtown. The specific plan was adopted in 2005, changed the land use zoning, so now in the past it was prohibited, now it's not prohibited, so they would be able to locate in the downtown. Fiscal impact, enforcing as it is just some staff time and resources, offset with application fees and fines from violations. No budget impact is anticipated from that. Alternatives, council may direct staff to alter its enforcement approach or to amend the city code to provide greater ease or greater restriction to mobile vendors. Should council determine to amend this code, staff does have a few suggestions as possible starting points. One would be increasing the time frame for mobile vendors to be in one location, but maybe restrict the amount of parking spaces they can take. Another option is valuing the conditions on permitting, if appropriate, to vary by the nature of mobile vending, i.e. hot food versus ice cream trucks. And then also reviewing and amending place-based regulations on mobile vending. So looking at commercial reclassification, as I mentioned, that's C1 to C3. Maybe looking at the downtown area, considering the parking management results. And then also, are there certain restrictions that were placed near certain areas or types of establishments? So is there a distance, say, from intersections that you want a food truck to locate, or adjacent to restaurants or bars, etc. So ultimately, next step, staff will commence enhanced enforcement efforts as described, and if council provides any direction, staff will pursue implementation of such direction. That completes the presentation, and happy to address questions.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, okay, then yeah, go ahead. I've got some myself, but go ahead.
So are you recommending that we keep it with the police department? Because that seems not very good.
Yeah, so the code currently places the responsibility for mobile vending on the police department. So everything's in there. Again, it may be one of those things where the ordinance was adopted back in 97. At the time, maybe the resources were a little differently as far as availability. So that's one thing in the enforcement that we're going forward is a coordinated effort between police department and code enforcement. There are obviously times where food truck is that where code enforcement officers may not be available, and so it's really just enhancing eyes on the scene. But again, that's the current code as stated as the police department.
Because I think we need to simplify it. I mean, we just did the downtown vendor ordinance, pretty much copy that to this, and change whatever we need to apply to a food truck, but I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel And I would like to see us discuss a possibility of assigning an area downtown somewhere where we can have mobile vending, where it'll become like an attraction in itself to draw more people downtown.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Klein?
Oh, it was on there too, Mayor, right before
Oh,
Klein.
sorry,
Yeah.
I don't see it.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
And I think Fred has his hand up too.
Yeah, I'll wait till the end.
Okay,
sorry?
I'm having to wait too. I'm going to forget my questions. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so, a couple things. The ordinance that we created for sidewalk vendors made it prohibitively expensive and administratively too cumbersome for our street vendors, right? For our food cart vendors to exist at all in our city. And I honestly think that was by design. It's made our downtown seem less lively. There's less foot traffic, right, when we're driving through, significantly less foot traffic. So I don't think that we should be doing the same thing or trying to do the same thing to our food trucks. Our parking consultant just noted, right, as does all the other data in terms of economic development for cities, that customers are looking for experiences, right? They're looking for variety. And when we have a variety of vendors who offer different cuisine, they offer something just outside of the norm of our brick and mortars. They're adding to our downtown culture. They're bringing people in. And they complement, right? They'll complement our bowling alley. They're going to complement all the new breweries, right? They don't distract. I think we saw from the amount of customers that our sidewalk vendors were drawing in that there's enough to go around. And so I honestly hope that we don't become the town from Footloose, right? Where we ban this and ban that and ban music and ban rock, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like dancing. I'm not done yet, Mayor.
No,
But
it was the crowd, okay? I need to
Yeah.
say that you're
So-
not supposed to clap because everybody's entitled to an opinion, and when you do that, it makes it difficult for someone who has a different opinion to feel safe in the space. So I'm going to ask you to please not applaud and not shout out from the audience. Thank you.
So, but just to end, I just, with live music, right, all the sound ordinance, with all these other things that are adding up, just feels very much like we're headed to be that town, and we want our downtown businesses to thrive, and that comes from variety and experience and, music and these entrepreneurs, right, who work very hard, and I think we need to make things easier on our sidewalk vendors and more welcoming to our food trucks. That's all.
Okay, now, is it Councilmember Klein or Councilmember Marks? Who's next?
Me.
Okay, Councilmember Klein.
Well, I would say this is kind of updating, just taking the ordinance and what it's for is updating it. But to me, we need to be creative too in finding, because things have changed since then, and what we want, our habits and things that we like, and food trucks is a big part of that. So I think that's where I think we should be looking creatively at that and how that would be, how we can make that work in downtown, because it is something people want, and we need to look at that really openly to see what we can do.
Councilmember Marks.
I agree with Councilmember Klein. I want to see some real creative ideas, and I see we have a list of people who are wanting to come up and talk. And when you come up and talk, what I personally would like to hear from you is your creative ideas on how this would work, what you would like to do. I mean, as I was sitting here, I kept thinking about what would really work well for the downtown, and I'd like to hear if you agree with that idea. I was thinking how we close off 5th Street on Friday, Saturday nights between Eagleberry and Monterey, and all the food trucks go there. I would like to hear, is that a possibility to help your establishments? Because I'm assuming that the tap rooms allow food to come in that people purchase. Is that?
Yeah, please, no.
Okay, I can't ask you that, but I hope when you're talking to us, you relay that to us? Do you allow customers to come into your establishments with food purchased from the food truck? Because I think
They
that's
do.
also-
I've done it.
Okay.
Okay.
So, would closing off a street in the middle of town be something that you'd be excited about? Because would that allow everyone to go to one area, buy their food, and then go to whatever establishment they want to go to? So I am looking for solutions that you're going to bring to us.
Okay.
Okay.
Councilmember Tovar.
Thank you, Mayor. So again, I'm trying to reiterate a lot of what's been said up here, especially what Councilmember Madera has mentioned about making sure we don't ban the food trucks. Bryson, I know you've been to downtown, and you know firsthand that these food trucks bring business activity downtown and help our businesses. You know that, right? Because you've been downtown, right?
Okay, Councilmember,
Oh,
we're
no,
not
no,
addressing
I-
staff.
I'm
You're
not-
talking to the council.
I am.
Okay,
I'm
so
making a
don't look
point
at
here.
him.
Okay. I'm not correcting him. I'm making a point here. And as mentioned in our Phase 1 recommendations, obviously this is part of our Phase 1 recommendations from our parking management. So, one of the things I brought up earlier was in our parking management report, the new parking lot was not included in the parking spaces available. So we do have enough parking where we can allow food trucks in downtown, right? I don't see it as it's going to hinder parking because we have plenty of parking. So again, I think I'm in favor of making sure that we don't ban this and that we make it, as Councilmember Bracco said, make it an easy process for food trucks. Not
Okay.
directing you, just making a comment.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't read anything that, I don't think anybody is suggesting banning
Right.
food trucks, like nobody was suggesting banning sidewalk vending either. We have a responsibility to make sure things are licensed when people are selling food, that they have a health department license, that they aren't causing harm and danger to other people, and that was all the stuff that we addressed over the months that we were looking at sidewalk street vending. So I am not going to, we are not supposed to be rehashing the sidewalk street vending ordinance. That was something that already went through the council, already went through the public process. That is the ordinance that we have implemented. We're here tonight to talk about the food trucks. And I would like to start by going to slide 4, if you don't mind. So is this saying, this is such an old ordinance that I'm not even comfortable that this is our starting point, but it is because that's all we have on the books. But what do you mean by that third bullet point? Last year, do you mean in 2022? Bryce, on this third bullet point?
Yeah, so this is information from the police department. I believe it was 2022 for last year.
Okay,
year,
so
2023,
in
calendar year.
So this is saying that in 2022, only 2 mobile vendors, and I assume this means food trucks?
Correct.
Okay, were licensed.
Correct. My
And
understanding.
in 2023, none?
That's my understanding from police
So the food trucks that we see, that we've all seen, that have been since January of this year, none of them are licensed?
Currently, yes. They did say that there are 3 applications currently in process.
Okay.
But yes.
Okay. So I hope that what we're here to address is not to ban anything, but how do we go about changing an ordinance that is outdated, completely old, update it for the times. We know there are food trucks. We know people like food trucks. We know that there are businesses that want food trucks near them. So that should be our discussion, is how do we get them licensed? If they're going to take up public parking, like parklets do, like that we have to start talking about encroachment permits. Because if you're going to use a public space and you're going to use it for a certain period of time, then that is something that should be discussed with how are you going to regulate. You can't, public property shouldn't just be free to the first person who goes and stakes it out. There ought to be rules as to how one goes about it from another. Doesn't mean you can't have them. It means you have to establish the process, something we have not yet done. So that's how I would like to see us proceed, is how do we make it so that we can have food trucks, so that it is fair to all? Do we want to consider having a location that allows for them to be there, that is a once a week thing, where everybody knows that this is like we used to have in the Gourmet Alley, when it was just lined with food trucks for a Thursday night, things like that. Those are the things I'd like to see us discussing. Not until we've heard public comment, but that's how I think we should go. Okay? Is there anyone else who has something burning to say before I go to public comment?
I do.
I have questions.
Okay, Councilmember Armendariz, and then we'll go back to Councilmember Tovar.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So, mobile food trucks are also subject to SB 972?
From my understanding, not the way that there's been, they weren't part of the ordinance that was adopted under the city code.
Could you?
So the sidewalk vending that was just processed, food trucks is not listed as one of those that's in the definition that falls under that. So these still fall under the current code. The delay, I think, was determining, from my understanding, was determining if food trucks would fall under the sidewalk vending.
No,
Which doesn't,
under
so.
the Senate Bill 972.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. I think my understanding was that the delay was in doing the analysis to see if that would fall under, would replace food trucks under sidewalk vending, which my understanding is it does not.
Okay. So we can't regulate them more than we regulate a brick and mortar. Is that also true?
I'd have to defer.
Based on
section development
972,
on that.
right? We can't say you can only be in here on Thursday nights. You can only be in the alley. You can only be on Eagleberry, right? We can't do that based on 972.
Councilmember Armendariz, 972 does not apply to food trucks. It
does
applies
not
to
that
sidewalk
was my
vending, so
question.
you can
Okay.
regulate at whatever level the council chooses.
Okay.
Right, and the level of regulation is unrelated to the regulation on other businesses.
Right.
You can regulate
That's why
them as
my
their own.
question was if it's subject to 972.
It's
and
not.
it's not.
It's not,
Okay.
right.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Tovar.
Thank you, Bryce. In one of your slides, you had something up there talked about a 10-minute time limit.
Correct.
Can you explain what that means to me, please?
Yeah, so under the current code as it's written today, mobile vendors must relocate every 10 minutes from their location. Again, this is why our understanding is that the ice cream trucks was the primary driver for the code language that was written, because
This was back in the 80s.
Right.
Yeah, for ice cream trucks.
So that's not applying to, again, going about, not banning. I mean, that doesn't apply to the food trucks.
It does currently. Again,
Okay,
this is one of the things
so it
where
goes back to my comments.
if we enforced under the code as it's currently
Right.
written, then that would be a requirement we have to enforce.
Right, and I know we're going to talk this through, but that goes back to the comment I made about making sure we don't ban food trucks, and that 10-minute time limit does exactly that.
No, I don't think anyone on this council is supporting that. That is
I'm sharing with you what we have, and if we move forward with this, that's what it's doing. I know that. I know no one wants to ban them, but that language.
And we haven't been enforcing that. That's been on the books since the 80s, and no one's been enforcing it. Food trucks have been parked wherever they've been parked all night long. Okay.
It's still there.
Okay. Yes, that's why we're addressing it tonight. Okay, let's go to public comment. Open public comment. I see 10 speakers. Is that right?
That is correct, Madam
All
Mayor.
right, so that's 2 minutes, everybody. If you please come up. Oh, I guess I should call the names. Miguel, James, and Sheila. You're the first 3, if you don't mind, coming up. And if you know you're going to speak, can you please come sit in the front row? That way this can just go more smoothly. You should see your time, hopefully right there on that screen. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, all. First, I want to commend you guys on the Christmas parade and the Veteran Parade. My 2-year-old daughter loved it. That said, I'm going to go into this. I'm sharing a brief history about myself and more contacts. I'm Miguel Plaqued. I'm originally from New York, but proactive resident, helpful neighbor, and Gilroy community member. I'm a Marine veteran, San Jose State graduate, and new Gilroy homeowner since 2020. I hope to bring an objective opinion to this food truck topic. I want to echo the feelings and statements of others when I say let's not make things harder for the food trucks. Let's not diminish them via the idiom of death by 1,000 cuts. If they are abiding by the requirements of the county, let's practice spirit of law and not so much the stern letter of law. To be frank, the insurance requirements set by the specific city for food trucks would not be ethically sound nor inclusive to these vendors offering the services to Gilroy. For someone paying Santa Clara County taxes, we want a Santa Clara County experience. We should welcome and incentivize these small business entrepreneurs to come and cater to us, not scare them away or deter them. Gilroy PD is doing an excellent job with their tools, and they're already stretched thin bandwidth. The collateral duties should be focused more on serious fields and sectors instead of the licensing and enforcement of food trucks. The burden of permit compliance should fall upon a different department or office within the city of Gilroy. The requirement that all employees be listed on a permit is not rational for a dynamic minimum wage paying job with frequent call-outs. Let's not forget privacy concerns. I firmly believe a reevaluation of the permit licensing steps should be considered. I hope a fair, understanding, empathetic, timely, and lastly, cost-considerate solution is achieved, not a solution influenced by personal business interests or conflicts of interest. I have a lot more I could say, but time's running out, and I want to give other people a chance. Thanks, and have a good evening.
Thank you. All right, James Azar, and then Sheila.
Hello. First of all, I just wanted to say I'm an owner and operator of a food truck. My wife and I, we own Papusa Lady. We've been coming here for about 3 years now, and it's been an incredible experience where I've had to partner with the community and business owners as well. But it also provided us other opportunities to be interwoven with the community. We've partnered up with the Gilroy Public Schools. We're here when Dolores Huerta was here. We've done the Thursday Night Live, so it's really provided an opportunity for us to be within the community. Being a South County resident myself, it's important to have a place to go where you can go and experience things. So I'm on two sides. I've lived in this area for 8 years. I've been coming to Gilroy. I live in Morgan Hill, but I come to Gilroy for the experience. And over the last 3 years, it's been great. We've had an amazing response here, and we love coming to Gilroy. Having heard what has been happening lately with the street vendors, it's kind of disheartening because two things. One is it seems that obviously the laws seem antiquated, and I don't envy your job of figuring this out, but something has to be done. So I'm going to spend the rest of my time giving some insight and feedback for you guys. So I know that from the streets from 4th to 6th, the parking spaces are parallel to the street, and those are most conducive to the food trucks that can open up the flaps. The ones
Diagonal.
Oh, me?
They're diagonal.
Oh.
Those spaces are diagonal. They're not parallel.
There's some that are
one or two.
Oh, okay. I'm so sorry. So for safety reasons, to have something where that's another set off area. Honestly, we don't come down. We come down here maybe twice a month, and Thursday through Sunday would be the most optimal times for us to come down. We won't come down on Monday or Tuesday because it's just not as busy. So that time period, lunch and dinner, would be most optimal. So just to have a designated space.
Thank you. The time is up. And any of you can write, to the council too. For what you don't have time to say here, you can put in writing and send. Okay, Sheila Munger.
Hi, good evening. I just like to comment that the food trucks and other food vendors have been such a joy to explore when we are downtown. The variety is exciting, and it's always a way to enhance our experience when we are here. We've been very pleased with all of the service and the quality of each of the vendors. We have noticed that the foot traffic is always better when the food vendors, food trucks are present. The breweries and tap houses are flourishing. However, we do know that when the discussion turns to ways to restrict access and reduce foot traffic, that can cripple our businesses. This discussion is a disappointment to those of us who envision a vibrant and forward-thinking community, and I hope that any amendments to our ordinances will lean towards making our community welcome to our food vendors. Some of these ways may include closing off some of the streets, food truck parks like they have in Portland and in Los Angeles, and maybe even opening up the alleyways that have access to some of our businesses along that side. Again, I just really hope that you guys consider that we enjoy the experience, we're bringing money downtown, and we want our neighbors' businesses to survive. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Terry Hendricks, Joseph Elmhurst, and Ryan Dickerson, the next three. Terry, that's the next one.
Hi, I'm Terry Hendricks Herman. I've lived here for 22 years. I am a registered active voter. We go to downtown and enjoy the food trucks and the food vendors. What we've noticed since it's become so restrictive for the food vendors is the business is dying off. It's noticeable on a Friday and Saturday night. We like the diversity of the food. Everything that you said about the food, bringing business and helping our new brew pubs and our tap houses, very true. What I like to suggest is to lower the fees to get licenses for these food trucks and the pop-up stops. I know that it's become almost prohibitive now after the last legislation passed, for the street vendors. It's taken away a lot of people coming to downtown. It was thriving. And then I understand needing laws, but it kind of crippled that. Maybe you've got to get rid of the 10-minute limit. That's got to go. And maybe close a block of downtown. I've lived in different cities where they just close it off a Friday, Saturday night, or Sunday afternoons. What are we using Gourmet Alley for? Maybe Sunday afternoons to bring people down there on Sundays. Fridays and Saturdays, 5 to 10, having first come, first serve. Please don't overregulate it. If they show up on time, like we go and see the Papusa lady. We love their food. California Inspirations, another local family. But they don't have the money for a truck, and now they can no longer be. These are people who are in our community. They go to our schools. They pay their taxes. So I would urge you to look back on that and reflect upon those laws, that they may not have served us just as well. All right? Well, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Joseph, followed by Ryan.
Hi, my name is Joseph Elmhorst. I run 2 food trucks. I come from Hollister. We recently went through this exact ordinance, and so I really implore you guys to reach out to them. We came up with very innovative solutions. We talk about perpendicular parking, diagonal parking, 2-hour, 4-hour, all-day permits, and we kind of packaged them all together. In fact, we went even further to work with our downtown association, me personally working with them in order to open up Food Truck Alley. And we just successfully gotten through our very first 5-week stint where we brought in between 800 to 1,000 people in our little tiny town of Hollister every single week to support our food trucks. When I started, there was 1 or 2. Now we've got an abundant culture of food trucks. We all know what we're doing. We also know the law. One of the biggest problems of what we're facing right now, and the reason why you're not getting the permits that you guys need, is because of the way this thing is written. It is so confusing for us to know what we can and can't do. Why bother? You know? Once you guys update this idea and make it clear to say, yeah, you can park here for 2 hours, but you have to leave in that 2 hour, you got to move 100 feet, or that 4-hour period, or whatever it is you guys come up with, we will apply and get those permits. We want to be in compliance with the city. We really do. But it's up to you guys to make it clear so that we know we know what to do. Okay? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, Ryan Dickerson.
My name is Ryan Dickerson. I own Bitter Tap House right there on 2nd and Monterey. I've seen a lot of people here, a lot of food trucks. I've visited my establishment. I think we're on the right track as far as being in compliance, and I think we're all on the same track as far as diversity. One thing our city lacks is diversity. And with these food trucks rolling in, as you see in all these other cities, it attracts a lot of people. One suggestion I hope you guys take into consideration, it's with one of a designated area for food trucks. Where would that leave my establishment if food trucks can only go to one spot? How do I state this? There's a clear difference when I have a food truck at my establishment and when there's not. So I just hope you guys take into consideration the location of these establishments that want food trucks there, and like Joseph said, make the permitting process a little bit more streamlined, a little bit easier to read. I'm not going to be a dead horse, and keep reiterating, how making the language a little bit more clear, so people can look at it and say, okay, I need to do X, Y, and Z, as opposed to looking at it and being overwhelmed. Because I've been through the permitting process. From 2020 to 2022, I was in the permitting process with the city, and it's very confusing if you don't know, what you're looking at and how to understand it. But I think we are on the right track. Just a little, a few tweaks to a lot of things, because these guys right here, a lot of people benefit from these food trucks that don't have an in-house kitchen. So that's kind of all I have to say, and I hope we take the right steps and not to exclude anybody from what's going on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next would be Alex. Carlino, and then Raj, and then Matthew.
All right, so I emailed in my comment, but I'll read it back. So I wrote in to express my strong support for the continued presence of the food trucks. And the food trucks, they offer a lot of diverse opportunities and options for everybody who's coming to downtown to have different food, and also provide a lot of opportunities for small business owners that can't necessarily do a brick and mortar or just prefer to be mobile. I provided suggestions in my comment, and the first one is simplifying the application procedure. If we want to have these people come and be part of our community, make it easy. There's no point in making it extremely difficult, and simplifying the process will definitely expedite getting these people who want to comply to do so. Clear communication, which is just also falls in line with simplification, and collaboration with the public health department. If we're requiring way more than what Santa Clara County is requiring, and that's diverting people who are saying, well, this is way too much work, we're not going to come here. Maybe if it's good enough for Santa Clara County, maybe it's good enough for us. And then the final suggestion that I made was for flexible locations, and that's reviewing where we do it and allowing these people to come to certain establishments, and maybe establishing more ownership between the actual people, the businesses that are inviting them, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Matthew, followed by, Raj. Raj Sharma, yeah.
Hi, I'm Raj Sharma, Mayor, council members, thank you for this time. Like I said, I don't want to beat a dead horse. I think we've all been saying pretty much the same thing. But I was here to come to war, and it was very encouraging to see a lot of the council members here on our side, on the side of the food trucks. I do want to say this, is that the previous ordinance was a unanimous vote. It was definitely rushed. It wasn't well thought out, and we immediately saw the effects. The entire downtown is a ghost town. And so I encourage you all to take your time. Look at every nooks and crannies. Look at what you need to do to make this successful. It's not complicated. It really isn't. We don't need creative ideas. We don't need another hurdle for food trucks to get to. They're already going to the county. They're already getting the health permits. They're already getting a commissary. They're already getting the sanitation. Just require a permit, require them to be at a certain time, and simple as that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Matthew Gallion, and then Alicia Hernandez. Alicia, oh, there you are.
Hello again.
Hello.
Yes, as we've heard from everybody else, there's a lot of support for food trucks and for the business that it brings to downtown. So again, I would just encourage you to methodically take the time to go through every bit of information to make the process streamlined and simple. Unfortunately, with our sidewalk vendors, I feel that it was rushed, and in one fell swoop, we killed a large majority of life in downtown. And we're seeing the impacts, and we'll see the impacts to come for a long time. Until the proper amount of food establishments are in downtown, we need these other businesses to supplement that and to attract people to downtown, and to hopefully for a restaurant to say, wow, people like food down there. I think I'll put my food business down there, and I'll open up that brick and mortar, and I'll fill one of the many vacancies that we have at our buildings down there. So again, I would just encourage you to take the time. Don't rush into anything. Think it out and make the community proud with whatever you come up with. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Alicia.
Hello, good evening. My name is Alicia Hernandez. I've lived in Gilroy all my life. When this ordinance was established back in 97, 26 years ago, downtown was, from what I can remember, Dick Brune's clothing, Mafalda's, I think we had a Salvation Army where the art store is. Times have changed. I'm happy to hear that the majority of council is in agreement of updating this city code. what Mr. Broccolo was saying. I don't think you need to reinvent the wheel as far as ordinances. City, just a few miles south, north of us, they have food trucks. They have a pretty, I don't want to say lenient, but it's easy for food trucks to get approved. You said there were 2 food trucks approved last year. Per whose standards, the cities or the counties? You have 3 pending. How long is it going to take for those to be processed per the city's ordinance? Are they going to be hanging out for months? So I really think that you need to expedite this process and updating this code, because there's resources out there that you can utilize to update this code, in my opinion, pretty promptly. And if you want to hear people's feedback other than these meetings, I would advise you to do a workshop with the public coming and giving their 2 cents and input. Because these people right here, they've established this hype around downtown, the vibe. I want to go down there with my kids. But you approve them without food. This is their solution of having food in front of their establishments. They're grandfathered into being approved without food. I know you want to reintroduce code so that establishments serving alcohol need to have food, but right now you need to act and help them out so I can help support them. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I see no other speakers. Are there any others?
No other speaker cards, Madam Mayor.
Okay, in closing I'm not closing it yet, so if you want to come up and speak, go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
So, my name is Daniel Hill. I live in
One moment,
Gilroy.
sir. Let me turn on this timer.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
My name is Daniel Hill. I live, and thank you for letting me speak. I opened a business a few years ago. I've been to these establishments, some of them near them, if not in other vendors, other.
Can you
breweries.
speak into the microphone?
Sure.
Okay, yeah.
And basically, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but you guys did rush the sidewalk vending, which eliminated my business, which is, okay. But, and I still work with the city on other events, so I just did one last week. And it's great, but I don't see how we could do those events, special events, and I know there's documents for that or whatever, but we could do the special events, but we can't do the type of sidewalk vending. I know that's separate, I totally get it, but it's just kind of weird how I can go to an event on a Saturday, do it with the city, and it's all planned, but I can't just go get a permit and do it in front of the business like I just did Saturday. So, again, not to go back with the sidewalk vending, but, I really like what you guys are doing right now and then supporting this trailer, the food trucks and everything coming in. I think that it definitely needs to be thought out, such as, he said, that it should be really thought out and not just in one spot. And maybe one spot is great, but not all the time. Maybe spread them out to all the vendors in the area, businesses in the area or breweries. It's something that really needs to be, worked over and thought out, and permits and everything. Don't make it so hard and expensive for us. I mean, I plan to get a food truck soon, but don't make it so hard and expensive for us to just say, forget it, I'm going to go to a different city, because in that case, what's the purpose of coming in and having to be so expensive? But again, thank you guys for talking about it. Thank you for bringing it up, and thank you guys, these guys here and all the other ones for coming in and supporting. And I hope you guys do come up with some really good resolution.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to close public comment and bring this back to the City Council for discussion. So I see Councilmember Armendariz up first. Go ahead.
So, I appreciate all the business owners and vendors who are here tonight, spending their time and lending their voice and letting us know how we messed up and how we can do better. But my question for council is what's the difference? Why all of a sudden do we have so much enthusiasm and support for vendors because they're in trucks versus the vendors that are sidewalk vendors? I think we have to look at equity as we write this. I don't want anybody to feel that this prohibits them, right? It should be welcoming, and it should be welcoming for everyone. Like, what's the difference between our sidewalk vendors and these food truck vendors? Why the difference? Why the change? You know, I can't help but notice, and I wonder what's the difference in the character and how these people look and the other vendors looked, and what they bring to downtown and what these vendors bring to downtown. You know, like they said, we now have a downtown that is crickets. You know, you hear crickets compared to the way how lively it was when we had sidewalk vendors, and I support a welcoming and streamlined permit process for these truck vendors, and hope that we can revisit that of our sidewalk vendors, because you know, they add to the character of our community, they add to the foot traffic and the prosperity of our downtown businesses. Yeah, that's it.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes, this is just a report, correct? And we're going to give direction to staff. So I would like staff to come back with what Hollister has done, Morgan Hill has done, where, you know, ask the questions of what was the bare necessity of licenses needed in order to run a food truck. Come back with some solutions on, or ideas, I should say, on times when food trucks would be allowed to be present on the street, closing a street versus parking actually down on Monterey Street. And I'd really like to go around, and maybe over the next week I'm going to go around to some of the tap rooms and talk to everyone and say, as an owner, you know, what do you want to see? Do we want to close a block? Do we want to use Gourmet Alley? Do we want to try, you know, I want lots of ideas of what other cities are doing, so we can do a really good, intense study to come up with the best solution. And I just want to respond real quickly to Councilmember Armenteros. One of the main complaints I think some of the businesses had, and it was all businesses, just not restaurants, was the messes that were left behind. And that was the main complaint. And sidewalk vending can still happen. They just have to go ahead and apply for the licenses, and they are welcome to be downtown.
Customers can be just as
Okay,
messy
no,
outside of
let's
a
not
food truck
interrupt.
versus
Let's
a
not
sidewalk
interrupt.
vendor.
This is Councilmember Marks
And
speaking.
then in response to like Bitter on 2nd Street, you're out of the main core, so maybe staff wants to look at the main core between 4th and 6th. And then you have plenty of room on 2nd Street for your food truck. That should not even be an issue for you, you know, forcing you not
let's
to.
not speak to
So,
specific people,
okay,
please.
I know, I
Okay.
always do that.
I know.
So anyway. All right, that's it. All right, thank you.
All right. Councilmember Klein, you're
I
on here
would
twice.
Mirror what Carol said.
Okay.
And, you know, flexible locations, you have designated spaces, off-street parking options, just looking at different possibilities with the vendors.
Okay. Councilmember Tovar?
Yeah, so a couple things. So solutions, because we're talking about solutions. And I'm on my phone because my computer's going to die, so I'm using my email that So first of all, we need a new city ordinance because the one that we have is way outdated, right? So we have to get rid of that, obviously. And then allow these food trucks to lease city-owned parking spaces, obviously, is important as well, especially with the new parking lot that we have. And again, you're looking at the permit process, the time. We should have a 10-day, 1-week time limit to get back to the food vendors and let them know, and reduce fees if possible. So we have to look for solutions, obviously, that is going to be beneficial to both parties. And again, so just and we can always regulate the way things go, but yet, as you're hearing, these food trucks are going to bring business to downtown. So we should look at it as a positive way. And what can we do? And again, I'm saying that we're all on the same page, but let's start looking at solutions and not have a discussion and bring this back a month or 2 months from now. Let's figure out what we can do now and make it happen. So,
Okay. Sorry. Yes, Councilmember?
Yeah, I would like to see us look at Morgan Hill and Hollister's also. And I also would like us to remove it from the police department. I don't see why a cook in a food truck needs to get licensed through our police department. And I think we need to look at simplifying this in no way should they have to pay more than a brick and mortar for a business license. My main concern is we need to make sure that they're being regulated by the health department for safety reasons, and they're not on the sidewalks and that kind of thing. But I think we should move forward with this, and I would also like to see staff meet with downtown and the owners of these trucks that are going to want to come up with some solutions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I haven't spoken yet, so I'm going to go. Right. I agree that my direction to staff would be what I hear the majority saying, which is to come back with what Hollister and Morgan Hill, if they both already have something on the book. I didn't know Morgan Hill did. I knew Hollister did. But if they already have something on the books for food trucks, I would like to see what that is. I would like to see suggestions for. I don't think I support Gourmet Alley because that's about to be redone, and that's going to look a certain way, and that's meant to be for pedestrians and not vehicles. So my personal opinion is that Gourmet Alley should not be where we look for this. But I would direct staff to come back with some flexible locations for where this could happen. And both. I personally would like to be able to consider a particular place that could be on certain days, whether it's every Thursday, whether it's just all Thursdays and Fridays, whatever it is, but a certain place. And I'd also like to see encroachment permits and how that would work, because then any establishment can use. They have to, of course, pay a fee for the encroachment, but that's only the way it should be. It shouldn't be that it's just first come, first served to public space. There should be a process for encroachment permits, and that way it gives anybody the opportunity to consider having something right near their location. But it should also restrict the number of encroachment permits that can exist within a certain area. Like you can't have more than so many within 50 feet of each other or whatever the thing is, other than if you have a location where it's supposed to be food truck alley, for example, as someone said. So I personally think looking at Hollister and Morgan Hill is good. I don't think we should be considering Gourmet Alley. I do think staff should come back with where we could have a food truck alley type thing, and I think encroachment permits ought to be considered. And I agree that it shouldn't be under the police department because our sidewalk vending is not under police department, is it, Jimmy? That's under community development? Right. So I would propose that it be under community development as well, with all the same restrictions, that it has to have a health department license and the same kind of city business license, and it would not be anywhere near what brick and mortar costs, but it would be whatever those requirements are. That would be my suggestion. Councilmember Tovar?
Yeah, thank you.
I'm on there too.
And you're all on here again, so it's like, yeah,
Jimmy,
everybody's on
Jimmy,
here.
I have a question for you, Jimmy. In downtown, the city-owned parking lot that's where the Christmas tree went up next to SEMA, how many food trucks? Because I'm looking at a location, Mayor, you had mentioned not using Gourmet Alley, but it's going to be a while before that's even built. But looking at
It'll be
other
next
places.
year.
Okay, well, we'll see about that. But anyhow, looking at that parking location, how many food trucks could we fit in there?
Thank you, Mr. Tovar. I don't have an exact number for you, but we are a little bit farther ahead than I think most people think we are. One, we started with the same place as I think council is right now. We have a 97 ordinance for ice cream trucks. Right. That doesn't apply to food trucks. Right. So we are looking at several city-owned properties, including 5th and Monterey, 7th and Eagleberry, to see what the concept for a food truck park is. The second part that we're looking at is the establishment of food truck areas, whether that is a main road, a side street, and a lot of this stuff has been addressed in other cities. I would not use Morgan Hill as an example because they don't enforce and they don't have an active food truck program, actually.
I didn't think so. That's what I was
But
yeah.
Hollister definitely. So we are working on these ideas, and some of the things that have been said we already have our economic development manager looking at. So
Perfect, yeah. So
I
would be in favor of what the mayor is recommending, with the addition that the information that you bring back with regarding possible city-owned locations for food trucks.
Yeah, and when it comes to encroachments, that it be no more than a certain number within a certain distance.
Right.
So it's not just covered. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Now I'm going back to the board. I have Councilmember Klein on here first. You're okay. Councilmember Armendariz.
Yeah. In addition, I know that Modesto has the city has partnerships where they do food trucks, right? They have a thriving like food truck alley. What's the name of that? Their main road. No, yeah. Their evenings, and it's like once a week, and they do special parties and parades and stuff with their food trucks. So I'd like for us to look into how they partner together, right, and the fees that they charge. And then somebody mentioned that the insurance requirements that want to list out of all the employees and things like that. And I didn't see that in the staff report, but I'm wondering, like, can we make sure that those type of things, those very restrictive and cumbersome, right, administrative requests aren't in our next policy draft.
To answer your question, Ms. Armendariz and also Mr. Bracco, the reason why the police department had the ice cream truck was because it required a background investigation. As you can see, the presentation was given by city administration, so we will be taking this program on, and then we can look at ice cream trucks separately because of the access to children. But a lot of these provisions from 1997 we would not recommend going forward with.
Okay. Councilmember Tovar and then Councilmember Marks. Oh, Councilmember Marks.
All right, one more suggestion to staff. I particularly would not like to see our food trucks put into a certain time limit, but, like every hour they had to move, or every 2 hours, maybe keep them there. If they are there for the evening, they're there for the evening, whatever the city comes up with, as a time designation. So, probably a minimum of 4 hours, I would say, or
Well, that would be
whatever.
part of the encroachment
Right,
limit.
okay.
Right, that
And
would all
then,
be part of that.
Also, I would like to see a staff report back to us in January. Just, because you're just basically finding out what's going on with other cities, and you come up with some, if our downtown committee can go and call cities and get information, the staff can too, and we did it with all having other jobs to do. So,
My response, Ms. Marks, is what would you like me to drop from the agenda in January?
add
to the
this to
agenda.
it.
Oh, I need to drop something
Why?
because our January is packed.
It is packed, but so what? We have till 11. This would be a report out back to us to see if we liked it or
He's
not.
talking about staff capacity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
It's okay. In the meantime, there's just nothing we're enforcing, so it's not causing any problem. I mean, we can't enforce what we don't have to enforce, so that's fine.
Well, can
But
I
I'm-
ask?
I think we do have a consensus, though, I think, on a direction, which is very nice.
But let me
That's
ask
very
this
nice.
question. So, thank you, Councilmember Marks. I would like something in January as well, but if that's not doable, what time frame are we looking at to get something on the agenda?
I don't know how long this takes. I don't know exactly what we're diving into, so I wouldn't want to make
okay. Well, I'll offer a
But
suggestion.
it stays as it is until
Okay.
then, guys.
All right, no,
That's
but I'm
the
offering a
thing. It's-
suggestion.
Right,
I'm
she's
not sure
offering
what
a
you're
suggestion.
getting
And
at.
my co-chair over there might confer with me. We could assign a subcommittee in January that's already finished one of their topics in the downtown committee to do some groundwork for staff to make phone calls. Would that be acceptable? Then we could report back to you, and then staff could take it and run with it later on.
Can we do that if it's not agendized right now?
Well, no, I'm just saying we would agendize it in January, but if that's acceptable to help them out, so this can be done sooner rather than later.
Point of order, can we add that to an ad hoc agenda at this meeting if it's not
We
agendized
can't
tonight?
appoint a subcommittee that isn't agendized. The council member is correct.
Yeah, I think we should leave it alone. I think what we're saying is nothing's going to change until we get to this. So I'm not sure what the sense of harm is.
And it's winter, like.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think food trucks work in the wintertime.
Yeah.
I just
But
hate to see.
they're being unregulated right now, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Right.
They're unregulated, so.
So I guess what we're saying is we want to get it rolling, so hopefully by April or May, all this is ironed out, because realistically, I don't see it happening any sooner. I don't want us to go into the summer months with nothing being done.
Okay.
I think
Mayor,
if staff
I have a
comes
question.
back with templates from other cities, I think that'll make it,
Yeah.
that can expedite the process for us.
Mayor, just sort of clarification, you mentioned it a couple times. They're unregulated currently.
Right.
So nothing is going to happen until.
Yeah, nobody's been going after this 10-minute
No.
thing.
Right. What I'm saying is, moving forward, we're going to continue to not regulate this until we come back with a
We don't
plan.
have anything to
Right,
regulate.
that's how it was with the sidewalk
Okay. I
vending
just wanna
too.
make sure.
Until we
Okay.
could, and then even when we passed it, it was 30 days after that, and then had to be the whole education process, so, yeah. Okay, clear enough? All right, that brings us to item 11.3. I'm tempted to take a break, but maybe we can motor through, I don't know.
Can we?
Can we take a break?
Yeah.
Leanne, can we just take 5 minutes? Okay, let's just take 5 minutes, everybody.
My feet are freezing.
Sorry.
It's totally fine.
I'm still walking at all these breweries. I put a lot of time and money into these places.
You do. And I like, I like food at places. You know, I don't like all the drinking. No food. No, it's gonna be fine. Just somebody calm down. What's the rush? I think it'll be fine.
What's the rush? We're not doing anything now.
Yeah.
But now we're closed, so.
Things change.
Yeah. Changes the
Certain things change.
How are you supposed to take a cookie off of that? I know, I'm not going to do it.
Is she supposed to just slide into the side or what?
This Saturday. Saturday night? Come by after. I'm going to
Great idea, running my class, but I've never done it.
Okay. You're doing the giveaway or you're doing the collecting? Is that the fire department?
I like some good. It's like 20 years old.
I'm glad you enjoyed that, Fred. Oh, you like that? Wasn't it pretty? It was so pretty.
Who owns it? So how do we get
Marcela from Dueñas Car Club. It's all women. It's an all-women car club. Mm-hmm. They work on their cars. I know. I love it. You better knock it off, Dion. You better knock it off, old man.
with it? Like the one you were in. Yeah.
She works on her own car. Is she rich? No, she works for the city of Hollister. It's been, that car's been in her it was her sister's car, then it was her daughter's car, and now it's her car. So they've been working on it in phases for years. Like she said, they've had it like 15 years.
I didn't want to get up in the middle and hand it to you, but in case you need
Because that's
it.
And she wants her daughter to buy it back from her, but her daughter wants a different. I don't know. I know. She just put in those. Oh, thank you. They just put it.
Oh, glasses. It's panicked. Didn't have my glasses.
Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Guys, we're back in session. Okay, we're on 11.3. Leanne's going to give us a report on the reorganization of facilities and fleet divisions in the Administrative Services Department.
Good evening, Council and members of the public that are still with us this evening. I know it's been a long night, so I will try to keep it short and sweet. But this item before you tonight is a reorganization of the facilities and fleet divisions in the Administrative Services Departments. And so we've been having difficulty recruiting and keeping a fleet superintendent. I think just fleet managers are a bit of a dying breed, and we just have not seen a good applicant pool for this particular recruitment. So currently our facilities superintendent, Walter, who's here tonight, has been graciously covering both facilities and fleet functions in order to help keep the work covered and to give the employees a manager to report up into. But because we've had difficulty with this recruitment and we're not seeing any prosperous candidates in the near horizon, we started talking about how else could we do this? Is there a different way to accomplish what we need to accomplish? And so from those conversations, we came up with a suggested reorganization plan. The staff report lists out how the two divisions are staffed now, and since that's merged into the chart up on the screen, which is also in the staff report, I'm not going to repeat that. But basically, the suggestion is to eliminate the fleet superintendent position, combine the facilities superintendent to be a facilities and fleet superintendent, which will have a cost of about $23,000. The savings from the fleet superintendent position results in $145,000 in savings. Currently, we have 3 facilities maintenance specialists that work on all of our city facilities and keep our facilities maintained. We're suggesting that we convert one of those positions up to a senior facilities maintenance specialist, gives an advancement opportunity to one of our teammates, and that person would be able to help out Walter, who's going to have more to do, by taking on the senior role, take on more complex assignments, take some things off of Walter's desk. And then the only other change would be converting, there's 2 other changes, converting our part-time office assistant that supports fleet and facilities, converting that to a full-time management assistant. That would give the 2 divisions a dedicated administrative support person to handle all of the admin paperwork that runs through these 2 divisions. There's a lot of purchasing that goes on, a lot of contracts and a lot of different things, and having a full-time dedicated management assistant will really make it possible for Walter to oversee both divisions and get the work done. And then to give fleet a little bit of support, we're suggesting a part-time assistant equipment mechanic who would assist the current team of mechanics with, some of the more entry-level, simple tasks, tires, oil changes, taking a vehicle for a smog check. Oh, this car needs to go to the car wash. Oh, this car needs to get picked up at PD and brought back to the yard. We don't need to take the time of one of our equipment mechanics to do those kinds of functions. And this would create some succession planning for someone to potentially move up, and we could groom them to be an equipment mechanic for us at some point in the future. So overall,
The cost of the changes and the additions are offset by the savings of the elimination of the fleet superintendent, and at the end of the day, we end up with savings of $5,281 per year. So we think this is a way to move forward, a way to cover all the functions and the work that needs to be done. It provides some advancement opportunities and some job enrichment for our city staff, and we think it's a win-win overall. So we're asking you tonight to approve the reorganization and then adopt the resolution to approve the position control list that incorporates these changes. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Leanne. All right, council members, questions? Councilmember Tovar?
Thank you, Leanne, for that. And just looking at this, so in the end, we're still, before the reorg, you had 10 staff members, and now we're sticking with 10, but we're just kind of adding responsibility to.
Well, we had 9, and we're 9.5, and we're going to end up with 10.5.
10.5.
Well,
right.
no, sorry, it's going to be 9. It's 9.5, 9.5,
right,
because
so
this one's being eliminated.
Yeah, sorry, I meant 9.5, 10.
Yeah.
But certain individuals, certain staff members will have additional responsibilities, right?
Correct.
It's maybe not a concern. I just maybe more of, making sure that with these added responsibilities, are they going to have the bandwidth? If currently we always hear that we don't have enough bandwidth, I just want to make sure that that's not what we're going to hear 6 months from now.
Well, Walter here will tell you that was the first thing I talked to him about, was there's no way he has the bandwidth without these other changes. Right. So in order for this to be successful and for him to be able to manage the 2 divisions like he's doing now, right now he's running around with the chicken with his head cut off some days, and it's a lot. But if he has a senior facilities maintenance specialist and he has a full-time management assistant, and then we add the part-time person in the fleet shop, that makes it more doable.
Got it. So in turn, what's going to happen? Obviously, it's the added responsibility is doable, but also there won't be any negative effects with this reorg when it comes
I don't think
to facilities.
so, and I think it's going to be a positive change for staff. Walter's excited about taking on a new opportunity. It's going to create an advancement opportunity for one of our facilities maintenance specialists. We're going to hire a new management assistant. The current part-time office assistant is vacant, and then getting the extra help in the fleet shop. Win-win, win-win.
Thank you, Leanne.
Councilmember Bracco?
Leanne, on a day-to-day basis, who's going to be over at the fleet shop saying, take this truck in, do this, do that?
If you see on the chart, we have a senior equipment mechanic. So we have a lead mechanic in the shop that's what he does every morning. He looks at what we got on our plate, what's coming in, what needs to happen. Here's what he's going to do. Here's what the other 2 mechanics are going to do. He's going to also then assign to the assistant mechanic. And then he meets with Walter to look at the bigger picture and hear about any, special things that need to be addressed, any changes to the work plan, that need to be handled that week, those kinds of things. But we do have a lead mechanic in the shop.
Well, if he can do the job, then what do you need to give it to Walter for?
Because there's a lot of office work that goes with this job. There's a lot of management work that goes with this job. Purchasing of vehicles, just the purchasing of vehicles in and of itself is a big workload. Getting the quotes, getting the bids, putting that all together, speccing out the vehicles with the departments, making sure we're complying with regulations. We've got some electric vehicle requirements. We have to have green vehicle requirements in place. There's just we have the fuel island. There's a lot of things outside of the shop that the superintendent has to manage and oversee.
And a facilities person could step in and take care of that?
Well, Walter has some unique skills because he came to us from Gilroy Gardens, and when he was at Gilroy Gardens, he supervised the ride mechanics and the fleet mechanics that supported Gilroy Gardens. So he has some experience in that area, and he's been doing a good job getting things moved down the road while he's been doing the temporary assignment while the position's been vacant.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay, do we have any members of the public wishing to speak?
I have no speaker cards, Madam Mayor.
Okay, closing public comment and looking for a motion. Okay, moved by Councilmember Tovar, seconded by Councilmember Armendariz for both approving the reorganization of facilities and fleet and adopting a resolution approving the updated position control list.
Councilmember Armendariz? Yes. Councilmember Bracco?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar?
Yes.
And Mayor Blankley.
Yes, that passes unanimously with one absent.
Thank you.
All right, so city administrators' reports.
Just real quickly, Madam Mayor, I wanted to thank everybody for a great event on Saturday, but I wanted to also give a shout out to our Public Works operations folks. They don't have the horses or the fire engine, but they really made that show, and they were everywhere. If you saw, we used Public Works vehicles to block roads for safety, so I was really proud of them. I got to talk to quite a few of them, and they just really, they were there, and most people didn't notice, so I'm going to give them a little love. That concludes my report.
I don't know if you know this, Jimmy, but afterwards, the committee did not have enough resources to take the garbage where it was supposed to go, and Public Works, those men came up and said, we will do it. Load into our truck, and we will dispose. And the committee was just really bragging about them, how wonderful they actually were, and I hope you praise them for it tomorrow and say thank you.
That doesn't surprise me at all, Ms. Marks. Thank you.
Yay. All right, city attorney's report.
No report.
All right, then with that, we are adjourned at 9:14 p.m.